Hey there, comic friends. I'm Travis. It's time for another Comic Roundtable. And tonight with me, as always, anchoring one piece of that little strip down there you see down in the corner is Sergeant America Mike. How's it going, Mike?
Fine, Travis. I probably should tell you this entire time. I have also been Hydra, so
Oh, you know what, Mike? We knew it all
yeah.
along, all along. And also with us tonight we have Ryan C. New guest, always in the comments. Anybody who watches any of these will hear me having a conversation almost every show at some point with Ryan. And enough YouTubers twisted his arm to get him to come on the show tonight. So much appreciated. How's it going tonight, Ryan?
Good. My allegiances are a little bit different, Mike. But
All right.
Right on, right on. Just as corporate, but in another way.
yeah,
Anyway. So, so we're gonna start out. We're gonna start out with DC. I think we got landmines just about everywhere to each area to talk about tonight. I think we'll start right out with DC, and heck, we might as well just start the show right out with, of course, the big book, the DC Universe Rebirth. What? How many pages was it? Was it 60 pages?
80 down to 64 with house ads.
Yeah. Okay. For a whopping $2.99 because they're gonna hold the line at $2.99, right?
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
Until the reprint, yeah.
Right. So let's talk about that first. Mike says that Mike actually had to borrow an issue to get to read it because your store was sold out. You said, right?
Correct. Yep. Midnight opening. There was about 20 people there for that. I didn't get it until Thursday late, and they said no, we're sold out. And luckily, my friend gave it to me. But when I looked online, because they told me they're reordering, I guess it's jumping up to like nearly $6, $5.99. And you mentioned square
Square
back.
bound. Yeah, they're gonna square
Okay.
bind it, and they're gonna charge you the price of it, what it would have been if they would have sold it like a normal comic book, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
anybody else who was selling this many pages, that's about the price it would have been. That's really
And
bizarre for a second printing, though, for it to be that much more.
and alternate cover, yeah. So I think they'll all be alternate cover, some of them at least. So
I'm a
Sure.
little surprised because my wife and I stopped by this shop today, and they probably still had 40, 50 copies of Rebirth sitting out. And my shop owner is very conservative in the numbers he orders. I don't
yeah,
know what that means.
yeah.
Uh, well, I would have suspected, I guess, that it would have sold fairly well everywhere, just because the price
Yes.
versus the page count. I mean, the dollar value as far as that. I mean, unless you're just an absolutely, hate DC or something, I would think there'd be some sort of. Even if I didn't read DC, I think I would have incentive to buy this between the price of it, the hype around it, to pick it up. And I'm being scolded in the comment section already because I didn't invite Comics to Comics. I did not realize that he wanted an invite. Invite has been sent to you, sir. So jump on, and we'll have you here talk some DC Rebirth with us.
The CDC's coming on?
Well, he said, dude, I didn't get an invite, so I sent him on. So we'll see if he shows up.
All right, clear the decks.
Ryan, about
Um,
how many comic stores do you have in your town?
Well, I'm in Minneapolis, so we have
Oh,
a pretty good amount. This has always been a pretty big comics town. I would say we have, I mean, like exclusively comics, like not games and other shit. We
yeah.
probably have half a dozen. And then when you
Okay.
include the places that have games and sports cards and all the other stuff too, there's probably 10, maybe 12. Now that's taken in the Twin Cities and the suburbs, but
Yeah.
you know, we got a fair amount.
All right.
so Amelia Akers is saying that her shop ordered about 100 copies of Rebirth, and when she went out on Friday, they had about 30 copies left.
All right.
So,
Yeah, my guy must have went really conservative then because I was surprised. We have this other shop that when I went to check on it, they go, "We're not ordering comics anymore," and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me! It's in the name on your sign." And so I just was unlucky, I guess.
wow. Well, you waited until Friday. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
Or Thursday. Was it Thursday?
Thursday, late Thursday night.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we do have CDC with us. My apologies,
All right.
sir. I guess I didn't realize that you actually wanted an invite. So.
Oh, it's all right. Hold on, let me fix my volume. I was editing right before.
Oh.
Ow!
And now you're deaf. Because I tend to yell anyway. So.
I've already learned one lesson. If I do this again, I better go in a room with a table or side table, because this whole throwing my laptop on my lap thing makes me look like a fool compared to you guys. You look like pros compared to me.
Could be a long night. So, let's get into the meat potatoes of the DC Universe Rebirth. So this is launching the new kind of where the direction they want the line to go in. Mike, what do you think?
I think they did a very good job in breaking it down into all the different sections, kind of letting you know what topics they were touching on by the titles. So I thought that was kind of good. It started to make me feel like they had focus that I was worried they wouldn't.
Cool. And CDC, he's reading his copy right now.
Oh yeah.
Hold on. I gotta get through it. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I kind of shared one with you earlier today. I felt like this made Batman look very incompetent as a character in a lot of ways. I think they should have at least written in, like, I kind of suspected something, or, I mean, it's in Justice League as well. Or at least some kind of idea that this has happened to him twice and he's not realized it. And I have an analogy. Let's say there's a guy that you get in a fight with several times and he's got makeup on, and then all of a sudden you get another guy coming up with the same makeup on. You're going to still be like, hey, you're a different guy. I can tell. Like, it just bothered me.
What bars are you hanging out in?
So you're referring to the three Jokers, then?
Yeah.
Right.
But it, yeah, I see what you're saying. So it isn't part of the whole. That isn't part of the whole. Oh, we've messed the timeline up with the Speed Force and it's pickled his brain, so he can't. Or you're saying he should have had a Wayback Machine somewhere that saves him, so he knows.
Well, no, that Justice League that's not even mentioned at all. It's just said there have been three Jokers the whole time.
That's the Justice League reveal. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I was just going to say, the very first page, Travis, the thing that you always hate. It says you have to read Justice League 30 and Superman 52 first before this book.
Yeah.
But
I didn't do that.
They just needed to give Batman a little more credibility in that sense of him going, I should have always realized. Like, he doesn't have to be like, I always knew. Like, that would have made him too over the top. But maybe being like, there was a few moments there where I should have. Because there are three distinct characters, too. It's the original 1940 guy, it's the Killing Joke guy, and it's the New 52 guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I just always think that I just always figure it's Jeff Johns writing it, and he's not a Batman fan. It's always kind of what it seems to me like.
Yeah.
He may say he's a Batman fan, but it's like the last character I think he thinks to write about.
Yeah, I just felt like this is a guy that would have figured this out if anyone did.
Right.
Maybe he could have got past Nightwing with it. Maybe he could have got past the Robins and all of that. But Batman is such. I mean, if we're gonna go negative with it, his paranoia would have led him into this.
Sure. Right.
But I like the Wally West stuff, and then the big reveal at the end. I'm sure we're gonna hear a lot about. I felt it fell a little flat for me. A lot of people had a huge response to it. To me, it was kind of like, well, we did this invasion thing a couple years ago with Earth 3. I think we're probably going to get an event like that down the road, and I don't care to read it.
With a different Earth. Not Earth 3, but a different Earth.
Yeah.
Right?
It's going to be the Watchmen Earth.
Watching Forever Evil. That's what it'll be called.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And me and you will be right on it. You say you're not going to get it, but me and you will be right on it. For 11 issues, we'll go, it's going to turn around, and then that 12th issue goes, I hate myself forever.
I can't think of a writer out there that I'd want to read that for.
Well, yeah. I don't think they're going to do that, but...
I can, but he doesn't work for DC, and he wouldn't touch the project.
Yeah.
Well, okay, how do you approach this? If like, in all seriousness, if you're going to do this Watchmen thing, how do you honestly approach it?
Okay, so I figure now after having read this, I have a guess as to what I think the Rebirth issues are going to be like. Because always kind of, there's been this kind of question: why do so many of these titles have a Rebirth issue before the proper run starts?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, clearly it's a bridge between the Rebirth and whatever the book's going to be. So I don't know. Are we going to see more of these 9-page grids with pink backgrounds and somebody mumbling in the background with a watch and a kind of tweak and stuff? I don't know.
You think that's where they'll handle it? Just get it out of the way?
I hope so.
Yeah, but I'm saying I'm almost wondering if. Okay, let me just put it out there. I know that there are 2 Batman fanboys out there that are going to get mad at me for saying this, but these are 2 potential Batman story arcs coming up that I have no desire to read. Just got that out of the way. Go ahead to move on to the next thing.
That's awesome, but I'm excited to read them. I'm looking forward to
the comedian versus Batman.
It's going to be a team up. Come on.
Ugh.
Batman will get a sense of humor and.
No, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the comedian teaming up with the other comedian.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see that happening. I just don't. I don't see that stuff going on.
Ugh.
But for me, this issue was a walk down memory lane of a Flash comic. To me, it was a Flash comic. I mean, Ted Rebirth thought it was a Flash comic. I mean, I knew some sense the Flash would be in it because anytime there's any multidimensional time, anything going on, it's always been. It's since Crisis, since the original event book. It's kind of been that, So I knew there was going to be some play in there. I really enjoyed that. I'm not a huge Flash fan, but I enjoyed the Wally West stuff all the way through there. It pulled at my heartstrings. Granted, maybe I'm extremely vulnerable right now as my kid's getting ready to graduate high school and having problems coming to grasp with that. So maybe that has an effect on me too. But I enjoyed all of that. It also felt like a giant FU to kind of Dan DiDio's desire for what he wanted the DC universe to be, right? Dan was hardcore. There's no marriages. There's no real love. It's all dark and depressing. The place is just crushing. It's got to be all this. And this book was all about, dude, the only thing that's going to make us through is love and kindness and hope and desire. That's what's going to move everything forward. So to me, it just about halfway through, especially when we get to the Aquaman part, where he's proposing to Mira, I'm just like thinking, oh, well, I can see the subtext there. If you hold the picture up in the light, you can see this giant finger, at Dan DiDio there saying, screw you, and because it didn't really felt that way. It really felt that way. I mean, so we get to the end of the book, and you get the whole kind of, Watchmen thing, and is that guy in green that showed up that was talking to Superman? Is that, Mr. Oz? Is that Ozymandias from the Watchmen thing? I don't know. I don't know. So we get a Mr. Oz instead of Pandora. I mean, because it was Pandora going through Flashpoint. Now we got this Mr. Oz guy that kind of pops in and says his thing. I don't know about all that. That whole part of it, it's like, to me, it was fine. They needed some, ex machina kind of thing to kind of, pull the cord and get us to what we want the new books to be. They decided that they needed some sort of an event to move us from what was to what's going to be. Fine, this was it, and that's the choice that they use, which of course folds the Watchmen properly into the multiverse of the DC universe. I think they kind of already did that anyway. I mean, didn't they kind of, when they put that map out, they did put a world that was the Watchmen world, so they chose. Yeah.
I'm looking at that multiverse map on the wall. There were 3 or 4 unlabeled Earths, and it could be one of those.
Okay, I thought it was in there. I thought that was one of the ones that's listed. Okay, so if not, that does make it more strange. But I guess I took it for what it was. But the thing is there are stuff in here that's great for all those of us who've read a wider berth of comics. There are, I bet, plenty of people who are in the comment section now that have not read Watchmen. And there are plenty of people who are reading comics now that have not read Watchmen. I know lots of people who started with the New 52, that era of comics, and still haven't read the Watchmen. So
Watchmen,
dipping.
Is that the one that they made a comic book on the movie?
Yeah, they made a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Yep.
So I don't know how impactful that is to anybody else who hasn't read that stuff. I mean, to me, that whole ending is weird if you don't know the Watchmen stuff.
Correct.
So whereas I enjoyed it, me personally, with the 30 years of reading comics that I have, I don't know if this really feels like it moves the universe forward. Other than like I said, what I mostly got out of it is that, you know, we're going to get a much more upward and outward kind of a universe, as opposed to a, you know, dark, let's fight everything in a black closet kind of a thing. It just felt like a refreshing kind of a thing.
Okay.
Let
me say what I enjoyed about it. I said what I didn't like about it, but I didn't. I enjoyed that they bookended the New 52 with Barry at the beginning with Flashpoint and Wally at the end with this, and I enjoyed that they kept the other Wally. They didn't go, because I was worried about that it was just, we're going to appease these fans that are kind of, you know, by getting rid of that Wally. I'm glad he's going to be the new Kid Flash, and they're putting Wally on the Titans, you know, and stuff like that. I enjoyed the little moments, like the Wonder Woman moment and the Aquaman moment. I enjoyed those most of all because I think my biggest complaint about DC has been that the universe has felt like it's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking into Superman and Batman. And to see them go, no, we're going to really build outwards, I enjoyed that more than anything. It made me excited to read the Rebirth comics. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. And you know, so yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think there are things that you could definitely look at and go, you know, why do we choose to use that venue to move us forward? I've seen some complaints about the use of that Watchmen stuff. Some complaints about the epilogue and the shots that they use there and whatnot. That this is not, that you shouldn't have black pages, that we shouldn't have this long, I don't know, drawn out kind of you know, 2001: A Space Odyssey-esque kind of a moment. And for me, this is not. I like comics like that. I have no problems with you know, especially with the price point I'm paying for the book. I don't have a problem with that kind of stuff happening. Those are mechanics that I think are fine. I don't think that those are.
They set pacing. They set pacing in what's going on. You're about to have like a bomb dropped in your lap right before that. I mean, because sure, you get the button, you know, so it's like, oh, the Watchmen, but then you realize there's kind of a hint that Manhattan was behind a lot of the New 52 stuff instead of the Flash. I mean, it's not even a hint, it's spelled out.
Right.
That there's someone behind it. I don't know. It didn't bother me. I know it bothered Brian, so I'm just waiting for him to say his piece. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't like, oh my god, what? Oh no. It just was like, oh, okay. So,
well, since I got a couple of you DC guys that have been reading the books for a while, the gentleman in the retirement home, Johnny Thunder,
Johnny Quick.
Yeah.
Wasn't.
Well, but this is Johnny Thunder. Johnny Thunder is like a Justice Society-esque character. You know, he has that totem that he basically pops in and becomes the. And then they ran a miniseries in the mid to late '80s where it was a Joni Thunder. You know, ran it for a while and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's what I was trying to figure out, because I figured it was Justice Society related, but I just didn't know. I just wondered, because when he took the green coat off of him, if he was the Spectre.
No, so one of the biggest complaints about the New 52 was people were like, oh, what about the Justice Society and all that? And they went, well, we're going to do this Earth 2 book, so that will appease you, and no way is that going to appease those fans. I mean, no. No.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I know there are plenty of potential pitfalls in the book and whatnot, but for me, you know, I enjoyed it from my own perspective of reading it and whatnot. But so Ryan, what did you think? Because I know that you where you think it's a fiasco of some sort or another. So let's.
Oh yeah, I do. I'll put it well here. Let me start at the start. So I got a review copy of the thing, so I read it early, and I respected their embargo time and even gave it an extra half day before I put the review up, because not because I was cutting DC an extra break, because I think the minute that I agree it shouldn't have been spoiled a week or a week and a half ago, but the minute those embargo times are up, I think it's fair game. Even and their embargo time was up a day before the book came out. So I had, going through the first few pages, I was like, well, they're getting the tone here right, but that 9-panel grid with the watch bugged me. And I purposely did not look ahead when I was reading it the first time. The 9-panel grid with the watch, I'm like, this is derivative, but come on, they can't really be going there. But then when I saw at the bottom, this tale takes place after Justice League 50 and Superman 52, I'm going to tell you what. If this is supposed to be a jumping-on point for new readers, it's tremendously inaccessible. Very inaccessible jumping-on point. As you said, the ending, if you haven't read Watchmen, that ending will mean nothing to you. Absolutely nothing. And otherwise, you're not going to know who, more reader out there are going to know who Johnny Thunders is than Johnny Thunder. You know what I mean? Yeah. At least if they're our age,
Right.
So, that's never explained. A lot of these characters that are shown, it felt like the whole Flashpoint thing felt like what am I looking to say here? Sort of a sewn together series of vignettes with a narrative device of Wally West. There were some things I liked. The idea of the old JSA coming back, I liked. The Atom having a spot back in the DCU, I like. When we get to the Blue Beetle stuff, you've got this looks to me like the original Dr. Fate, not the teenage kid of recent vintage. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, right.
So that's cool with me. Then he reveals that the Blue Beetle Scarab is magic. Who was around in the early 90s reading Vertigo books? Travis, I bet you were.
Yep.
Remember a little something called Scarab?
But originally the Blue Beetle was a magic beetle.
Okay, but if you remember,
not necessarily attached to him, but I mean the original Blue Beetle, the charlatan character was
the Golden Age Blue Beetle.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The
Right.
Ted Ford Silver Age Blue Beetle.
He wasn't. He was Spider-Man in a blue costume. But
right.
But before that,
if you remember an early '90s Vertigo book called Scarab, and he was it turned out he was a Golden Age character that, remember, everyone had forgotten about.
Right.
And I'm realizing, I wonder where they're getting some of these ideas. Then we go on the next page, we see Pandora die, blown up obviously by Dr. Manhattan. And that had me flipping back to that blue hand from earlier, and suddenly this line makes sense. Now we all know there are metafictional elements at play here. You said you think that Johns was taking a direct dig at Dan DiDio with some of this stuff. I didn't see that. What I see is Johns absolving himself and his bosses of any responsibility for the mess DC's in, and taking the easy way out by saying, okay, when we first see Dr. Manhattan's hand, it says that darkness from somewhere has infected us. It has for a long time now, I think, even before the Flashpoint. So he's saying the DCU's been getting dark for a long time, and he's saying that over Dr. Manhattan's hand. So that's the first instance to me of them blaming Watchmen for making the DCU darker. I know that's a popular opinion, that Watchmen and Dark Knight made the DCU darker, but the truth of the matter is Frank Miller, Alan Moore, Dave Gibbons, they didn't go to the other creators, put a gun to their head and say, make your books darker. That was a DC editorial decision. They were like, darken everything up. That comes from DC editorial. The message I always thought, people were sending with the success of Dark Knight and Watchmen was that they wanted more good comics. But the kind of limited line sight of vision that DC editorial had at the time, and has, certainly tenfold since, is that dark sells, not that good sells. And that is not the fault of Watchmen or Dark Knight Returns, both of which are actually books with kind of wicked senses of humor. when you look back at them. It's not like they're an endless slog of darkness, and they both have reasonably hopeful endings to them. So by the time we got to this stuff here, where it's Barry and Wally sitting around talking, and Barry's going, "Are you sure this wasn't my fault?" "Oh, it wasn't, Barry. It wasn't, Barry. That's more, John's. Hey, this wasn't me." And then here we go with Watchmen again at the end. This is incredibly poorly laid out sequence here where Batman finds the button. I take it that Wally wanted him to look at that letter because a reflection, sort of a gleaming reflection from the button, falls on the case the letter's in. Then Batman finally notices that button, which must have been there who knows how long, glinting, like you say, CDC, lousy detective work. Then he sees it, digs it out, and then we get into this stuff that, absolutely no new reader is going to understand. And so basically what I take here is, and I do read too much into things, but I think a person should, because what's going on here is, to me, the height of hypocrisy. They're blaming Watchmen for making the DC universe darker when it had nothing to do with it, and at the same time, they're going to exploit those Watchmen characters for, cash all over again. Now, I know a lot of people hate Alan Moore, and it's, very popular to bag on him now. Personally, I have all the respect in the world for the guy. But even if you are a Moore disliker now, what reason is there to to pee in Dave Gibbons' face like this? He's been nothing but a gentleman to DC. He even signed off on that before Watchmen fiasco, and then we're getting to the point of diminishing returns. If you'll remember when Watchmen first came out, or before Watchmen came out, people were excited. Those that weren't put off by it were pretty excited, and by the time it was over, man, no one cared. And believe me, by the time, sooner or later, when we're getting to the 5th or 6th Dr. Manhattan guest appearance in a book, it's not going to have any punch anymore either. There were no new ideas or new characters on offer in this book. Nothing to, it's totally appealing to old fans. It's looking backward rather than forward. It's utilizing characters that cheapens their value. I mean, this isn't going to do anything to enhance the value of Watchmen, except maybe economically. The back issues will go up. But it takes what was, a separate standalone universe that existed for the purposes of deconstructing and commenting on superhero universes and making it part of a corporate superhero universe. So it's sort of, you'll have to forgive me for being a pretentious ass here, but that's how I look at it. I mean, it cheapens Watchmen. It unnecessarily, it offends two creators, one completely unnecessarily. And it lays the feet for the blame for how dark the DC universe got on a book that's 30 years old, and that the creators, haven't worked at DC in decades. And the people that did do it, hey, they're still in charge. And if you like Jeff Johns, bad news, he's left the building. So you've still got all the suits that ran the New 52, Lee, DiDio, all those guys are still there. And to me, moving forward, I'm going to give a lot of the books a chance, but I think Rebirth is going to be the New 52, only with heroes that smile instead of scowl.
I think some of your points are valid. I disagree with a couple of them. One
Only
being,
a couple? Come on.
Well, quite a few of them, but there's a few that stand out. One, I think this was not anti-Watchmen or anti-The Dark Knight Returns or anti-getting darker to these universe. It was trying to cull those fans back that they felt they lost with the New 52. They were trying to say, oh, we're sorry, we changed everything. We're going to bring some of that back. We're going to try and win you back. What they don't realize is that's 30 years ago, and they're trying to depend on something from 30 years ago to bring back fans instead of going, how do we get new fans? How do we get new readership? To me, that was where
they don't have new ideas. They don't have new ideas. They're
afraid to do those new ideas. Because whenever they do those new ideas, fans go, oh, I'm not going to touch that unless it has Batman or Superman or anything else on that. And if it changes the Dark Knight Returns, or if anything happens to our sacred cow where Barbara Gordon gets shot, we're not touching it. So don't tell me that people don't want old ideas. That's all they want is old ideas. That's the problem with the big two. If I had to say there's a big problem with the big two, is that they just want the stuff that's 30, 40, 50 years old. Go ahead.
Okay. When they were let me think. Okay, Watchmen was a new idea at the time. Okay, and Dark Knight Returns wasn't. Okay, it featured an established character. Watchmen featured derivative characters that DC had just purchased at a fire sale from Charlton.
Sure.
Okay, but they changed them in a way so that they're all fundamentally different, just like Moore did with Swamp Thing. I mean, by the time he was done with Swamp Thing, that character was unrecognizable compared to the Len Wein, Bernie Wrightson iteration. You'd agree with that?
Sure.
Okay. And characters like Dr. Manhattan bears pretty much no resemblance to Captain Atom by the time Watchmen's over. Peacemaker and Comedian don't have much in common. Night Owl and Blue Beetle a little more so, but the rest of the bunch really, he took him in his own direction. So it's not a totally original creation, but it was an original idea at the time, and I think we've been starved for original ideas ever since. And there's a reason that no DC project has achieved the crossover, mainstream, commercial, and academic and intellectual success that those two titles have, and it's because none of them have been as good. Nothing since then has been as good. I'm not saying they haven't done anything good since then. Books like Sandman and stuff were great, but I can't think of a mainstream DC book that has been as good as Watchmen or Dark Knight Returns since then. Can you?
But Watchmen wasn't a mainstream book when it came out.
It was, though, Travis.
No,
it was published. It was published under the main DC label. It was advertised. It was advertised in all the DC books at the time in the house ads.
I still wouldn't consider it a mainstream book.
Okay, well, fair enough. We'll agree to disagree on that.
I was there reading it as it was happening, and it wasn't a mainstream book. It was so far off left field. I mean, yeah, it was under the main thing because there wasn't anything other than the DC imprint at the time, and they had some ads, but they had ads for everything. There was ads for everything out there.
Ads were promoted though. It wasn't just, it was very heavily promoted.
I don't remember that. And getting back to this book, so you're saying because they dabbled in Watchmen in this book, that it has to be comparable to the Watchmen.
I don't remember saying that point at all. Although it would be nice if it was.
Well, I'm trying to understand why we've drifted off into talking about how awesome Watchmen was, because I have no argument with that. But
what they need more than a nice, respectful nod to the past is an infusion of new ideas that people can get on board with. And maybe the readership is too conservative in their taste now. Maybe it's all just 50-year-old fanboys who can't get on board with anything new. And if that's the case, that's too bad. But this is going to in 3 or 4 years, they're going to have to relaunch DC all over again. And what both the big two need is some kind of fresh invigoration of something new that does come out of left field, that is unexpected and is unforeseen. And they've been,
Well, I think that's going to be rare and few and far between, because they're corporate comics and they're generally quite comfortable where they are, give or take. They're both battling to hold their market shares.
Right.
But that's, that would be my wish list. Let's make all the comics, as creative as possible and whatever. But realistically, it's corporate comics, and corporate comics aren't going to go there. So I think, for me, I don't expect to have an expectation that everything that comes out is going to have the kind of impact that like Watchmen or The Dark Knight had. I don't even begin to expect that.
No, I'm not expecting that everything does either. I'm saying though that that's what they need. And if you look at the successes right now, Miss Marvel, you don't need a tremendous amount of backstory and knowledge to get on board with Miss Marvel. And that's, that is probably, as far as, they took a step back when they relaunched it.
But
it's
not Miss Marvel.
Can we agree though that Miss Marvel is an aberration of corporate comics? It's not the norm.
On top of that,
but would you be more enthusiastic?
Who is Miss Marvel appealing to, though? Who were they trying to appeal to with Miss Marvel? Were they trying to appeal to those fans from 30 years ago? No, they were appealing to a brand new fan base.
Correct.
And instead of listening to that, they go, well, wait a minute, we don't want to scare off these people that get mad on the internet that aren't buying comics anyway nowadays. Let's be honest, the people that are buying comics nowadays aren't those people from 30 years ago. So I get what you're saying.
I understand what you're saying, Ryan, but I think this book was never had the intention of drawing in brand new readers. I really don't think that was ever what it's about. What it's about is all of those people who went, since the New 52 went, screw it, I'm never touching DC again because they wrecked my universe. My life as a DC comic book collector is over. I'm quitting. It was a letter to bring them back. And I don't agree that this is basically them expunging themselves of any responsibility of what's happened in the DC universe and trying to blame it on books from 30 years ago. I don't really think that. I don't think that Jeff Johns, quite frankly, was ever totally on board with the whole New 52 anyway. It's not his style of book. It never has been. I think that's mostly Dan. That's who I want to blame it on if I'm going to blame it on somebody. But I don't think it. I guess for me, if you think that The Watchmen is some equivalent of comic book Bible that can't be revisioned or touched or whatever, any place else The Watchmen's at is going to be heresy, and so this book is trash. I mean, I get that if that's how you want to look at it. I don't. I mean, I love that book dearly. I still think it's fabulous book
I can appreciate it
on a ton of different levels. But I don't think it's some mythical thing that can't be screwed with. I don't, and I don't think it's an insult. I don't think it's an insult to the creator. The dude signed away. He signed away his credits. He got an awesome deal at the time when they were making contracts. He had a better deal than most did when they put that book out. That's the nature of the beast. We can all go back and look at everybody's contracts way back and say those people were screwed. But I don't take this as, I'm not carrying this as some insult for Alan Moore, and I don't dislike the man. I think he says a lot of shitty stuff just to piss people off because he's where he's at in his life now. Fine, whatever. But I don't take this as an insult to him or to Dave Gibbons. Nobody slapped Dave Gibbons in the face. The guy made 9-panel grids famous, but he doesn't own 9-panel grids. So I don't know. Those aspects of it, I don't buy into at all. Your take on the fact that it's not what I would do if I was going to relaunch a let's make a new world and all the stuff that's in it. I'm totally agreeing with you. All this stuff should be totally fresh face instead of dipping back into stuff that like Mike is having to go, who the hell is this character? Totally agree with that part of it. But that it's somehow it's an attack on Watchmen in some sense. I don't know. I don't know that I subscribe to that.
Oh, I'd say you don't.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's fine, and I can appreciate it, but I don't like that these comics from 30 years ago are such sacred cows that we cannot touch them at all.
No one's saying that, but there's...
Welcome to the internet.
Does it work? Does it work to put... Well, first of all, you want to... I'm not going to go down the contract road. Travis brought it up. I won't go too far down there.
That's fine.
Because they have... they've been violating the spirit of that contract, though not the letter, from day one.
Oh, sure.
From day one, because those rights were supposed to revert to Moore and Gibbons decades ago.
Well, once the book was out of circulation, sure.
Right, and they purposely kept it in circulation to not do that, which is a shady move. Okay, but we'll leave that out of there, okay? We'll leave that out of there. But it doesn't add any value to the Watchmen to throw them, are there that many fans out there, even long-timers, who want to see who wins a fight between Superman and Dr. Manhattan? Come on. What sort of a especially pathetic person?
Splattered across the universe, but...
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, come on, some of this stuff is just really designed to appeal to, I hate to use the term lowest common denominator, but just the idea of Night Owl and Blue Beetle teaming up to rid Hub City of crime does nothing to excite most people, does it?
No, no.
Yeah. So there's one thing we can all agree on then, is that at the very least it's sort of a WTF idea to bring the Watchmen into the DC.
Yes and no. It depends on how they're actually brought in. You know, if it's a matter of that these entities exist out of time, fine, whatever. I don't believe once the stuff doesn't have rebirth on it, I do not think that we'll see these stuff again. You know, the start of this whole talk, CDC brought up the fact that he was waiting for that event book to hit that was going to have all of it. I don't see it. I just don't see it. And quite frankly, I won't see it, because if they do it, I won't buy it. So,
okay,
no.
I just don't know. I don't
No.
see it. To me, that seems crazy. I'll agree with you, Ryan. That just seems that seems crazy to do that. It makes no sense.
And
it probably would have made more sense to have the Anti-Monitor in the background doing something again than it would have been.
It definitely would. But that's right. And what I'm concerned about is next time it all runs out of gas. And you seem to be Travis, of the opinion that this will last longer than New 52.
Well, yes and no. Clearly, we have to wait to see how they actually execute it versus what they've said they want to do. Am I saying that we'll never be getting a litany of new number ones again as they? No, I'm not saying that, because that's clearly where corporate comics have gone. I mean, Marvel crossed that bridge a long time ago, and DC's just trying to figure out how to do it without copying them. Quite honestly. So no, I don't think that aspect is going to go away. But I guess we have to wait and see. I'm hopeful that they continue forward with what they have said that they want to do, where the comics are character driven and not, they don't have a formula that everybody has to follow, X number of pages, there has to be so much action for every single comic, it doesn't matter what the story's being told. And that's what the New 52 was. The New 52 was, everybody had basically a standard plot points that they had to hit.
Yes.
And that made for drab comics. I think some comics will continue to go forward with that format because it works for them. It works for the character or whatever that is. But they all can't be that story. And the books that stand out of the New 52, for me anyway, are the ones where somehow those creators got away with not following that formula.
Right, Snyder and Capullo were allowed to break it pretty well right out the gate because they were having big sales success. But you're right, there was, it was literally, if I remember the numbers right, and I had them in my review that I wrote of this, they wanted a fight every 4 pages. They wanted underlying character tensions bubbling over either every 12 or 16 pages. It was literally that, standardized at first. Now, the one thing, and I'll stress it's only one thing I will give the New 52 credit for, was that it was an inherently forward-thinking enterprise. It has a primary goal, expanding new readership and bringing it in. And this is an inherently backward-looking enterprise concerned with winning back everybody they've lost. And that only has a limited shelf life in and of itself, because at some point they're going to have to reach out to new readers again.
Oh yeah, and I don't. Well, so you think the new books that are coming forward? Because the conversation's gotten well away from just this book, but you don't think No, that's cool. That's why we're here. I'm here to have a conversation about comics, which is great. So you don't think that the new titles that they've announced going forward, that some of those aren't new reader forward kind of books?
May be, but if a new reader has picked this up first, I think a lot of them will walk away in frustration and say, I didn't understand a damn thing in that comic.
That's not what I've seen from the comments. I mean, people who aren't DC fans,
well, good for them.
And we're fine with that. I mean, you're right. If you're a comic book virgin, I've never read a damn comic book in my life, and DC Rebirth is the comic book you pick up. There's a bunch of cool guys running around electricity, and that's what there is. Yeah, and somebody knows how to put together a watch. Totally get you there if that's the case.
And one other point I want to address quickly is I think what's sunk the New 52 right away was this tight editorial control you were talking about. You know, and here's the problem. We're going to have at least half of DC's line double shipping. They're going to have an art by committee approach on all of those double ship books, and that is not going to lower editorial control. That is going to increase editorial control. You know, when you've got a double ship book with 4 different guys drawing it, the editor is going to be in charge more than ever. So as much as everyone's enthused about Jeff Johns, who's now headed across the street to run the movies, the fact is we're still left in the brain trust, and I use the term brain loosely, of guys like Dan DiDio and, of course, the great Eddie Berganza, you know, who, by the way, was one of the editors on this book, you know. So that's why DC, you know, they've got a lot of, they're going to have to prove it. If things really are changing, they're going to have to prove it. Because it's the same clowns running the show.
Sure. There's no doubt about that, and that stuff's all cleared up to debate until we start seeing the books and exactly what it's gonna, you know, what they're gonna be like.
I feel like an alien not being able to see the comments. I'm used to being on top of them so
I don't know that.
You know, if they're slagging me, believe me, I had something like 20 or 30 thumbs down on my review before the comic had even hit the shelves. You know, because it went up the day before. So it's like, wait a minute, you people are disagreeing with me before you've even read the book. So there is a reservoir of goodwill out there. People want to like this a lot.
Yeah. Well, and there's the fanboys. There's the fanboys. Marvel and DC both have them. That does not care what actually happened, what's actually said. If you're negative about their company, you're going to get burned down. I mean, that's the
average mature adult is able to recognize a good product or not, regardless of what corporate label is on.
Right.
Oh,
and no, I'm not going to read over the comments, but no, there's no. It's mostly how to do it. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's mostly talking about porn, to be blatantly honest.
Oh shit, man! The minute I get off the comments section, all the good stuff happens.
It improves. No kidding,
okay,
right?
I'm going to shut up about Rebirth. Thank you guys for indulging me. I hope at least I didn't sound like a negative Nelly, and that my points, whether you agree with them or not, have some intellectual merit to them all the way across the board.
No, it's definitely a different point of view. I didn't think like, oh, he's wrong. I just thought he had a different point of view. I think once again, I'm going to critique the internet a little bit. I think there is that. That's not a different point of view. That's them stating facts, and therefore they're wrong. No, I think you just have a different approach.
Oh, we're about to get a visitor, gentlemen. Oh,
yeah.
I read Omega Man. I read Omega Man and Justice League, obviously, too. I don't want to talk about it because it'll lead right back into the discussion because I had some points about it. That if you have a guy that doesn't have editorial over his head, you can write a decent comic book. But I'll just, you guys go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a fair point. The fact is, with the double shipping and whatnot, editorial is going to have their hands in things more or whatnot. It'll be curious to see the conversations that I've had personally, face to face, in the flesh, with creators who are working on books that are supposed to be coming out. Granted, they aren't out yet. I have been led to believe that, yeah, granted, editorial's there and doing their job, but like, the art isn't spastic. There's some with the books that I've talked with people about, that their art is consistent. They have a plan. Granted, the plan has to come to fruition. Everybody has to do their part. That it's not going to be all over the place. You're going to have, you know, the 3 or 4 issues of an artist. Then you're going to have 3 or 4 issues of another artist. Then 3 or 4 issues of another artist, because the writers are supposed to be that far out in advance. You know, granted, if they, you know, the rumor mill of how the New 52 work, where the editors at the waking hour, you know, the witching hour, the last second, were wanting changes. If they start doing a bunch of that, this basically the equivalent of 4 or 5 issues planned out in advance will quickly fall apart, and it'll all become a giant crapshoot. So we'll see how it goes. I just think of the Rebirth books that are coming out. It's narrow in focus in some ways because they have to start somewhere. But at the same time, there are new books with really new characters or new takes on those characters that should be able to bring in new readers. You got the whatever the title is that's got the Superman's kid and Robin in it, for instance. That's clearly they could take that off in a whole different direction of however they want to. They're bringing Titans back that Teen Titans back and Titans back that have more clearly recognizable characters. Granted, maybe they aren't the cartoon characters that they're currently running, but at least they kind of carry some of the same names. So there's some visual recognition and some name recognition there to draw in new types of readers, I think. I just think there's some stuff out there. It's not all going backwards and they aren't putting out a vigilante comic book, for instance, or whatever. So it's not all going back to the 80s and living in the 80s. But clearly, I think and I was going to talk about this at the end of the thing, but clearly a concern I have is it felt like that Geoff Johns was kind of in charge of picking a lot of the writers anyway who were going to be working on these books. Like he was kind of wanting to know that they had a character vision before they were going to be working on these books, and he has clearly since left. I mean, he is no longer working in comics, right? At all, basically. He is now clearly going to be working in movies and movies alone, which is great for Warner Brothers, maybe, I hope. But
not if you saw Green Lantern.
But that right, that Green Lantern does concern me. But that does leave us, you're right, with Didio and Lee, who I don't have anything against them personally, but I don't care for their day-to-day vision. I appreciate Dan to the degree that he really wants to just do something different, and that's cool. It's just the vulgar way he goes about doing it is horrible for me. And leaving those two guys in charge of it all is frightening. I mean, I will admit to that, it's frightening. So.
Well, and Eddie Berganza is the group editor on the Rebirth titles.
Not all of them.
Maybe not all, but a good chunk of them.
I mean, because that would
including this one.
But that basically you're telling me that he's taken over Geoff Johns' role.
No, Geoff Johns still has his job. He hasn't been. Technically speaking, they just expanded the role of Johns to Chief Creative Officer of DC Entertainment, not just comics. But he'll be spending most of his time on the movie side.
Sure, where the money's at. Yeah. But the Rebirth is everything, though. The entire line in 2 months will be Rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that Berganza is in charge of all of that?
No, he's not in charge of all of it. I'm saying the Rebirth issues.
Oh.
The Rebirth specials. Yeah.
Sure. I guess that makes a certain amount of sense because you'd want the one editor to be in charge of that whole thing. And like I said, for me, I just think the Rebirth thing's going to all touch on this to some degree, and then it's going to be done. We're going to go into telling their own stories.
Like a tie-in type thing, like what these characters, like more detail of what's going on with these events in this book.
Right.
In their
how individually, Batman was screwed with for that time that's pulled out and whatnot, and how he put the pieces back together. Boom. Then he's off and running. The same with the other, because not everybody's getting a Rebirth thing. Because some of those characters, it rightly doesn't matter. I mean, they don't have it. There's not enough to them to, to say that their world was turned upside down during the New 52. They lost 5 years of their lives, whatever the hell that is thing that happened in the Rebirth thing. So, yeah. And the whole Rebirth thing could just confuse the hell out and muddy the waters completely. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see when the first one hits, which is what?
Next week.
Next week. Yeah. So exciting stuff. Well, let's move on to other DC books. We done talking that? Anything else we want to say about it?
Oh, my mouth is dry from talking.
I was gonna go refill my water here in a minute.
So was this the final issue? Oh, you mentioned Omega Man. Was that the final issue?
Huh?
Yeah.
So did it end really well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, like when I really started collecting comics, I read all my siblings' comics from the 80s, but when I started collecting, Kyle was there, so I don't know if that lends into me liking it more, but I just feel like it was well written, and I know you're not a fan of like space sci-fi stuff, so I don't know how it would appeal to you in that sense, but I think maybe like give the trade a try.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm really thinking about it because I've been digging everything the King's been doing, and this is the first thing that ends. The King's done the ending of, so I'm really curious about the ending of it. Does it end, or do they just kind of trail off into the equivalent of whatever the sunset is in space, and I mean, or does it feel like it has an ending?
It didn't feel like it was robbed, like the fourth, like a fourth ending where you're like, what the hell was it? No, it felt concise. I didn't feel like I was robbed of anything. We're about to watch someone die on a hangout.
No. I'm good now.
But yeah, it felt like a concise ending. It felt like since the book was canceled and then brought back.
Right.
I think he was preparing for an ending in that sense, so it didn't feel lost on me at all. I'm more interested in how the Vision ends.
Yeah. 100% with you there. Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I thought the Omega Men, and we all know me and Tom King, but I thought the Omega Men had a really good conclusion.
Good.
The art was spectacular throughout.
Yeah. Yep.
One or two villain issues were kind of weak, but this Bagenda guy, who's been doing most of it, just a spectacular artist. And I think it'll read really well in trade.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll probably go through and read the 12 singles up again one of these, weekends or something. It's really good.
It came out of nowhere for me. Like I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot.
That's what we need more of.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely. I wasn't a fan of Mega Man back in the day when it first came out, so I just kind of passed on it.
He waited till the 90s when Lobo was Lobo. That's when he...
Missed that too, thankfully. So.
Well, that's the thing, is he was supposed to be a parody of all that, and then people were like, I like him because of that. It's just
Well, that's what happened to Judge Dredd, too. He was supposed to be a parody of, these tough-ass Law and Order characters, and turned into one.
Yeah, the joke's on the creator. Yeah, for sure.
Anybody read Superman?
I'm going to be during Rebirth for sure. How was
he grabbed this 52nd issue?
Well, wait. So is he the new 52 Superman's dead, right?
For now.
And so is this the before new 52 Superman? Who is the Superman now that's around?
That's the pre-Flashpoint Superman.
Okay.
Because purportedly the new 52 Superman is dead. They had a little storyline going called the Final Days of Superman that ran through 5-6 titles, and I actually was stupid and followed it, but for the most part it was pretty good until the last 2 chapters, which were just clearly drawn out 3 or 4 page sequences extended at 20 pages.
So are they going to have that moment where Wonder Woman's like, you're not the same man I knew? Oh, what's going on here? Who's she going to date?
Oh, the old Superman who they brought back is married to Lois Lane, and they have a kid.
Yeah. I know, but the new 52 Wonder Woman is still the new, right? So like they were dating, and now her boyfriend's dead, but there's a guy that looks just like him.
She's met this other Superman.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
She knows the score.
Good, because I'm trying to protect a comic book I'm really looking forward to reading, and I don't want that dumped into it.
All right.
How did Superman die this time, then?
He fought a guy who got infected with his solar flare power, and it shot him off into some guy in a prison, and he started thinking he was Superman and tried to join the Justice League and fought them all, and then went supernova and killed Superman with his own solar flare power or something. It was a very emotionally flat, weak ending to what was otherwise a pretty decent little crossover arc. And they had the Mikkel Janin art, which is pretty good, but this was not quite up to his usual standard from his other books.
So I wonder how far. I mean, clearly, they had planned it somewhat in advance. I wonder how far in advance they had that planned. I mean, was it a different story to start out with, and then they decided to kill that character off?
Yes, actually, because
the Rebirth thing wasn't really planned. It doesn't feel like it was planned that far in advance.
No, it's a great point.
So then maybe that's why it landed flat, because it was like all of a sudden we went from whatever the experience was gonna be to now we've got to we got to do this instead.
It was solicited first as a story called The Super League, and the idea was that Superman was bringing the whole Superman family back together to make like a league. And then, I think they decided editorially that the easiest thing with this new 52 Superman would be just to kill him.
Right.
So, yeah. But it's too bad because he was actually likable for the first 4, 5, 6 parts of this 7, 8 part little arc. He was a better written Superman than we've seen probably in the entire New 52. And then they turn around and kill him.
Sure.
But they do leave the door pretty open for some kind of return down.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
It's comic books. It's comic books, nothing else. It doesn't matter how fatal and final it is. You know, there's somehow they can always bring it back if they need to. Cool. So, Mike, you still reading the Suicide Squad Most Wanted?
Oh yes, indeed. I enjoyed this one with the MacGyver, great escape that Lawton pulls off by pulling the bomb out of his own neck. There was, I think it was issue 3 with Katana that I was not overly excited about, but from then on, it seems to just be getting better and better every time. And, I was very excited for the Katana issue on this too, that her character seems so much better, so much solid, and her interaction with the squad was so fun. I've just enjoyed this, and, I think, so yeah, we're one away now, so it'll be great to see how this wraps up.
Yeah, I'm liking the Deadshot more than the Katana, and the reason I started out with I like the Katana better than the Deadshot. But the whole him escaping was pretty cool. Other than him shaving his stash, so now he's kind of weak because he doesn't have the stash. But yeah, I'm one more issue. I'm looking forward to seeing if Buccellato can land the ending of the book and whatnot. Because that's the stuff that I've read of his. The ending's always been on the shaky side, so I'm curious to see how that is. Going into the coming months, there's going to be more of these Most Wanted things coming up.
All right.
I'm trying to think who it is that's next. I can't remember. I ordered it because I like this enough, and I like these kind of solo stories about the squad members. So, I'll have to let you know, Mike. I'll go look it back. I'll go look it up and
you said
at some point let you know what that is.
Buccellato is writing that book?
Yeah, he's writing the Deadshot part.
Oh, all right, because I thought they had one of the older retread writers like.
Well, it's Barr is writing the Katana.
Barr, that was
Yeah. The creator of Katana or co-creator of Katana is writing the Katana book, and it has elements that make you feel like you're reading somebody who wrote in the mid '80s. It has some elements of that, but it's fine. I mean,
it can be fun.
I enjoy it. It doesn't. For those who listen to me complain about Swamp Thing, it doesn't dip back into the old school dumb of that book, which I know I'm the minority on.
I love that book.
I know there's a ton of people that do that just think that's a great throwback, and for me it's as frustrating as all get out. But no, I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed it. It's been pretty cool. For you get 2 books for $5, I guess. So
yeah.
I want to quick dovetail back real quick to a point you were making a minute ago. When you were saying, because your enthusiasm for Wonder Woman is obvious, and or wasn't that you, Travis, saying that's the one you're really looking forward to?
It's CDC, but I am too. I'm stoked.
CDC, okay. Yeah, and you were wondering how much in advance or how much these things came together at the last minute. That Wonder Woman pitch from Rucka came together literally at the last second.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, because they had flown Marguerite Bennett into WonderCon, and when she got to the airport, that's when she found out they were going a different direction on the book. Yeah. But I think they had been courting Rucka to come back for some time.
Right.
Because that was one of their big gets would be to get him back. Yeah. But there were 2 or 3 pitches solicited for most of these titles.
Right.
At one point or another. I hope that everybody who didn't get their pitch got some kind of kill fee. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know if they did or not. I hope that they did.
Because that's what I'd heard, that Marguerite Bennett had that book.
She did.
Had the book. And that's a bummer. That's a bummer for her, and that's one of those things that's got to be pretty hardcore about being a freelancer, is to have those kinds of experiences. And it sounds like there are lots of creators who do, so it's not like it's a slight at just Marguerite Bennett and whatnot.
No, her pitch was probably good.
Yeah,
She's
and
writing stuff like no one else is writing right now. So I
Right.
mean,
right, and I would have been all on board with her Wonder Woman too. I would have been picking it up. My understanding is that part of the reason that Rudka thing came through the way it did is because they moved Wonder Woman from being under the Superman family editor to a different editor also.
Well, they had to when there were women artists put on the book.
Well, it wasn't just no. It was flat out. It was flat out. Rudka said, "I'm not
Good
doing
for him.
this if I'm under these people." And I don't know if that had to do with protecting Scott or it had to do with the fact is that he just flat wasn't going to work under a douchebag. So, yeah. And it wasn't until they decided to move because now she's under the Batman family, a group of stuff. Doyle is their editor.
Oh, that's interesting.
for the Wonder Woman book. So
Okay.
yeah. So and I hope it works. I hope it works out well. I love Greg Rucka's writing on whatever he's doing really. I like his take on DC characters, so I hope he has a good experience with them. So, down the road we can get I don't know.
Yeah.
someone in the comments is saying that the new Superman is not the pre-52 Superman.
It's
a totally
a Flashpoint Superman.
Oh, well, that's what they said, so I don't know.
yeah. Jock Lowe is saying that the new Superman is not the pre-52 Superman. That was mentioned in Rebirth or Justice League 50.
I don't
I don't
remember
know.
that.
And I don't know, guys. The Superman part was murky. Clearly, that wasn't because he's married to Lois and has a kid. Clearly, he's not the. But that Superman wasn't married either.
No,
Was
but they
he?
kept on aging on that Earth. From what I understand, and maybe this commenter is more tuned in, they brought him over in that convergence thing. So when that happened, the
Oh,
pre-Flashpoint
okay.
Superman,
Oh, okay.
that world kept on going after they switched the new 52 universe. So
Well, that's kinda cool.
him and Lois were married, you remember, but they didn't have a kid.
Yeah. Right.
So, they had a kid down the road. The kid is 10, 12, 14 years old now or something. So they all came over to this Earth during that convergence. I'd have to dig out my back issues and see for sure, but that's,
You're 100% right because Titans kind of started from that as well.
Yeah.
So that makes complete sense.
Well,
Because
that's
remember now, the convergence was supposed to reset the table for everything, and that wasn't even a year ago now.
yeah. Well, no, Convergence wasn't. Convergence was just a cute fill-in while everybody moved from one side of the United States to the other. That was nothing other than that. But I mean, as a married person, I'm excited that Superman is married to Lois Lane, and that they kind of dropped the whole war on marriage thing. So I hope there's more of it because I think it's silly. Cool. What other DC books we want to talk about? I only have one other DC book this week.
What is it?
Grayson.
Oh, I stopped picking that.
So you dropped off the book once Seeley and King and them were up. I stuck with it. I kind of wanted to see what was going to happen, where they would end at. Last issue was okay. I mean, the issue before that works kind of like clearly fill in. Oh my God, we don't know what we're doing. We're just going to write something because we're trying to fill space until the rebirth starts. This one ends the whole spiral thing. Grayson gets his life back. They do use as Luke kept talking about. They do use the satellite to basically nuke everybody's minds into forgetting that Grayson was ever Nightwing, so he can go back if he wants to. He can go back to being a superhero, and he can be Nightwing again and all that kind of stuff. So they set that up. The only people who don't know, Huntress, she had the code to work the whole thing. She actually put in there some parameters so the Bat family knows who he is.
I was about to say that. I was like, what? So wouldn't Batman be like, who the hell are you?
No. There's some people.
So
Right.
it is convenient ex machina.
Yes,
Go.
yes, it really is. But there are elements that I really liked of it. They did treat Grayson well in here. I think that the writers of the book did kind of figure out what Grayson's voice was, by this one, how Grayson would end, how Dick would end, kind of the relationship that he had with the Huntress and that sort of stuff. With Bert and Ellie. Bert and Ellie's going to go back to being Bert and Ellie. She's not going to continue to run Spiral. She basically Spiral for her. She comes to the conclusion that really that was just a place for her to hide to try and escape the whole crime family thing. That she really does need to go take care of that before she, moves on with the rest of her life. Not that we're going to see any of that, mind you, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad,
Well,
but.
And aside from that, like the whole point of Grayson, besides everyone knew his identity, was to deal with Spiral. So I mean,
Right.
if that is coming to an end, that
Well,
kind
yeah,
of
in this issue, they fight Dauntless and take the whole thing down and stop the spider and everything's right in the world. But basically, it's Dick Grayson and his Jedi mind tricks versus the bad guy's Jedi mind tricks, and Dick wins because, of course, what has Dick done since he's been a teenager except for dealing with the psychic trauma that all these career supervillains have laid on him as the sidekick over the years? He basically uses that to his advantage and has stronger will than the bad guys do, and wins out in the end. So it's okay. Nothing special. Nothing like the Seeley and King stuff and Janet on art stuff was, but this wasn't bad. That's it for my DC books. Anybody other got any other DC books they want to talk about? No?
I'm rereading Doom Patrol. If you want to go for
Nice.
the
That's a whole-
Morrison run.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah. We've got to. We got to do that at some point because I'm enjoying the hell out of it reading it again. For my birthday, my girlfriend got me like 4 or 5 of those trades, and I'm like, I'm just gonna sit and read this. Why not? And I'm like, I want to talk about this with somebody.
Cool.
Yeah, we got to do that at some point. Dan Abnett signed an exclusive.
Exclusive. Yeah, this week, right?
Yeah.
So people who don't know Dan Abbott, what has Dan Abbott done?
He's currently doing Aquaman. He did Resurrection Man. I'm probably the only person to pop for that. Indie-wise, what did he do indie-wise? I'm drawing a blank. I'm seeing covers, but I'm not seeing names.
Dan Abnett's done stuff like the New Dead Guardians.
Yeah.
He did. He isn't he the one that's writing or has been writing Wild's End? Right.
That sounds right.
Yes.
If you're a Marvel fan, he's Guardians of the Galaxy.
He made the incarnation that's in the movie and all that.
Right.
His run on Hercules for Marvel right now is very popular.
Oh,
Very
okay.
Well, that's what I hear.
Effective.
So that's interesting that he's going. So I off the top of my head, Aquaman is what he's writing. What else is he writing?
Titans.
Titans.
Mhm.
Okay. As
He
far as
wrote
the
Titans.
so that's what he's going to be writing for the Rebirth stuff. Cool.
And he's
said
writing.
Resurrection
It's the
Man.
stuff he's writing right now, essentially, because he's writing Titans and he's writing Aquaman
Oh, okay.
right now.
So he's just going to continue. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
You
you've been reading.
mentioned
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say, you mentioned Resurrection Man. Was that after New 52 or pre?
That was part of the New 52.
Part of the
Okay,
New
all right.
52 and before the New 52. There's
Okay.
two
Right.
runs.
Right.
You can read either one and not be confused by the other.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you'll
You get to the-
appreciate,
Go ahead. See.
you'll appreciate aspects of the stories in the New 52 if you read the stuff from the 90s, but I don't think Travis ever read the stuff from the 90s and liked it. So
No, I just started with the New 52 stuff, and you'll enjoy it up to a certain point, and then you can see where the wheels start to fall off the bus because editorial and what was going on around him just freaking killed the book. And
in all honesty, what it feels like to me, it's when Image Comics stopped being Image Comics in the 90s and started doing these kind of inventive books in the 90s. Not anything like they're doing now, but instead of like having Liefeld characters, they started doing these kind of neat stories, and it kind of harkens back to that, and then it just cuts off, and you can do it by the issue. You're like,
issue
this
9.
this is one story, and then now this is a completely different story. They canceled the book, and you remember when they did the 0 issues?
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of giving that a 0 issue, like where it's like, this is the beginning of that, the 0 issue is the end of the story.
Yeah, it was cleaning the mess up.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. I actually have the first 10 issues now. That makes sense. All right.
Right, and
I guess
I
I'm
think
done.
right, and I think part of the problem with that book was because of how they launched the New 52, where literally in 1 month they launched 52
Yeah.
brand new titles. If you were one of the big names that everybody knew, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, that sort of stuff, those smaller titles just got killed immediately, even if they were good books. I really enjoyed that book. I mean, I don't know, maybe debatable if it's good or not, but But yeah, a lot of those books just suffered immediately because they were, if you're released in the same week that Justice League and Batman comes out, what chance do you have? You're competing for people's dollars. There's no way.
You just made an observation that this entire community needs to make. And you just ran over it without even realizing it. I enjoyed it, but it doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
Everyone needs to take that and think about that with their comic books. It would cause so much less tension around here.
Sometimes, but sometimes when I say something's good, it really is. And if you argue with me, you're wrong, though.
Exactly.
Because I'm the exception to that rule.
Me too.
Do you think they realize that now with Rebirth? That
Well, they're clearly launching it slowly, putting the books out slowly as opposed to a giant boom. So hopefully, because that was nuts.
And a lot of those books that are a little more, I don't want to even say fringe, but not necessarily right in the are doing monthly instead of twice a month.
Right. Right.
So they're giving them a shot on some level.
Yeah. As opposed to putting out a book that's $1 more with a weird backup issue in it that nobody's reading in the first place, like All-Star Western. So, yeah.
That first arc, I will put that up
yeah.
against a lot of things.
But it was still hard to consume because the fact is it was $1 more than everything else because they had that backup issue. They had the backup story in it.
Wasn't Batman and Detective at $2.99 at the beginning of that too? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Batman but it wasn't. All-Star was $1 more from the beginning. You're right. Like I said, you make it an obscure book and then you make it more expensive and then wonder why it doesn't hang on. I'm shocked it went as long as it did. At any rate, any other DC news we want to talk about before we roll on to something else? He's only been talking for almost 2 hours about DC stuff. I can't think of any other DC news.
Yeah.
The Abnett thing was the big get for the week, I guess, huh? So on to Marvel.
Sure.
Let's save the rampaging stuff for the last part of the Marvel chat. So let's talk other Marvel books. Oh, you haven't gotten this, did you?
I literally went to another shop, and they were like, "We're sold out of it." And I'm like, "How the hell did that sell out?"
Wow. Weird
So-
world.
You guys go ahead, and I'll be back.
Okay.
Because I haven't read it, and I don't want to be spoiled, so I'll be
Sure.
back.
Mike, issue 6.
It was nice. Yeah, you could tell it was rushed, but still done in an amazing way. I didn't feel that it didn't end as badly as I've seen other books end. I did like it. It does allow something if they ever wanted to do more with her.
Right.
Beautiful. I mean, it was just beautiful story and beautiful, beautiful art. So
Yeah. Our heroes walk off into the equivalent of the world sunset
Yeah.
by the end of the issue. And it says the end at it.
yeah.
And as I've been telling Mike for the last couple months, it's not in solicitations anymore, Mike. I think it might be canceled. And when I had a conversation with Sam Humphries, the guy who writes it, his entire conversation about it was past tense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Ryan told me off air that he thought that Sam had signed an exclusive with DC also, and so maybe that's why it's ended. I think it's ended because it wasn't selling. Also, Do you have a sense, Ryan, of what the numbers were? You kind of pay attention to that a little more than we do to some degree.
I can't remember Weird World numbers at all, but I thought of one other quick thing that might lend some credence to the idea that Humphreys is going exclusive to DC was that he wound up that Citizen Jack series he was doing for Image, too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, they cut that short at number 6 and wrapped it up.
Oh, okay. And you think right now is we want to keep writing that book just because it's
Oh, it ended up
it was-
being realistic. It
I
started
know,
out
it
crazy.
was way too close to home in some ways. So, but anyway, Weird World. I mean, it had some great conversations in it between our main character and Morgan Le Fay, for instance. She kind of does the Disney, evil queen witch thing where she kind of brings her in under her wing. It's all sympathetic and everything, and then goes all dark and nasty on her by the end of it and whatnot. But it did feel like it was like, okay, we got to hurry up and get this done. I mean, this whole confrontation and conflict between them could have went, I'm sure, quite a few issues. It's done, really, really quickly as far as that part of it goes. still some fun art in it. Clearly, I love the scene, for instance, where what's her name? The warrior, the
Golgotha.
Golgotha is flying down out of the sky to smash down into him and stuff. Is pretty cool.
Cat Beast. I was.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. It's.
I was surprised that the seed ended up being Infinity Gem.
Right.
I am glad that he revealed some of that stuff. That he revealed, Morgana, the Great Builder. They were all friends.
Mm-hmm.
It showed that he had a lot there that he could have done.
Right.
I would have definitely loved 3 more issues. This is number 7. 6. This is
6.
issue 6. So 4 more issues would have been great to just kind of round off the whole thing. I definitely. They made Weird World. It was very excellent of a land, the ideas, that Humphreys had, Del Mundo. I hated every time someone else tried to use it. They just made this stupid version of it. So
Right.
for that reason, maybe they won't touch on it anymore. I'll be happy just to leave Weird World as it is.
And really, I mean, there's lots of bizarre stuff that happens in this and whatnot. This is really a character-driven book. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's about this girl, about her emotional traumas and her trying to work her way through that. She basically has her ghost come back and haunt her in this. Then she has to kind of deal with that and whatnot. And I thought that was all handled really well, dialogue wise, visually wise.
Those family photos of her and her mother fighting. I mean,
right. Well, yeah, even in this,
touching.
yeah. I mean. Yeah, the way there's a set of panels in here where she's remembering back dealing with her mom, and it is at least here in the States, you can go to any box store and there's kind of a stereotypical this kind of a picture frame, live, laugh, love, and it's these different photos you would put of your family in here, and they use that as the framing, the panel work for her, just to show her experiences with her mother, who clearly is a chronic suffers from chronic depression and stuff like that, and her as being kind of the responsible teenager, having to be the adult when you've got this parent that's choosing to check out and leaving you with what's there, and that was cool. That's a cool piece of kind of interesting panel work and whatnot, But yeah, and there's some really big visuals of it and stuff. You felt like it was going somewhere because they break the Infinity Stone and it turns into an Infinity Dragon and goes flying off and they have to go chase after it. Yeah. And that's what it ends. It ends with them basically kind of, okay, well, we need to go chase after this thing, and that's. But art's amazing. Kind of hard not to basically whatever Del Mundo's on, for me anyway, not to picking up. I've heard rumored that he is going to be doing the Hulk book.
Totally Awesome Hulk.
Totally Awesome Hulk, where that has sounded cool anyway.
Yeah.
But if he's actually going to be on that book, I'll be picking it up because his art's just too cool not to pick up.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Ryan, did you read any Marvel books this week besides Captain America?
I read one other. Nighthawk.
Oh, that's the new one, right?
Yeah.
I didn't pick that up.
I picked it up because I like David Walker. He's writing it. I don't know too much about the character. My understanding is that he is the Squadron Supreme universe equivalent of Batman. Right. The Squadron Supreme characters are all DC stand-ins, Hyperion, Superman. Mm-hmm. And I guess at some point they brought all those into, I guess with Secret Wars, Marvel's all one universe now.
Right.
I didn't read Secret Wars, I don't know. But this was an okay book. He's kind of a brutal. I noticed it has a parental advisory, mature readers label on it.
Interesting.
The art is interesting. It has kind of an indie vibe. I've never heard of the artist. His name is Ramon Villalobos.
That looks cool, actually.
Yeah. It's not as strong as some of Walker's other stuff that I've read. I do have another Walker book that we'll get to in the indies that was much better. But this was an okay little read. He's going up against a serial killer in Chicago. It takes place. It's fairly topical, you know.
Yeah.
There's an area in here that's a stand-in for, like, you know, the Robert Taylor homes or the Cabrini Green or one of those projects that they've all torn down and replaced with Section 8 housing that only covers 60% of your rent or something. And then at the end, they reveal some serial killer who's called The Truth. He's here to reveal the truth. I don't know, it's an okay book. He's going after slumlords and other people, so the implication is maybe that it's Nighthawk himself, because he's a super-powered social justice warrior, sort of. But it's not him, it's this other guy. So it's all right. I'll probably give it another issue or two. The art is interesting. And like I say, it's not Walker's greatest script, but he does enough to keep you on board.
That's what I felt about Hyperion. I thought if this was $2.99, I'd probably read this a little longer, but it was just...
Who's working on Hyperion?
I don't remember, but it was like, this is actually an interesting take on Superman, because it's essentially Superman.
Right.
And I thought, okay, this is kind of interesting. He's on the run. He's trying to help this girl out, but it's $3.99, and I just didn't feel like it was worth $3.99. I actually kind of want to give that a shot after you talked about it, to be honest.
That Black Hawk.
I think it's like I always resist like 1 to 10 type scoring, but I'd give it more on a higher side than, you know, it's above a 5 and, you know, less than a 8 or something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's worth a try.
Sarge, what were you going to say?
If it was $2.99, I'd be like, I'm in for the long haul. You know, at $4, I'll give it another issue or two.
Nighthawk did, well, there was a Max series, I believe, with Hyperion and all. It was basically the squad. Mm-hmm. And he did another serial killer one, but the serial killer was superpowered. So he had to bring in Hyperion into it. So it's, I don't know, it seems like that's kind of a note they always seem to go back to with him.
Well, it's kind of like Flash.
Yeah. Or, you know, kind of Punisher. Like, there's certain notes that you can always expect to see or certain storylines, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, and then, you know, they have a twist, you know, just kind of the urban twist, and then it's, African-American cast, because Nighthawk is, in his daily identity, is a rich African-American businessman. So he's like Bruce Wayne. And then his sidekick is not Alfred, it's a African-American female computer hacker. Is his kind of sidekick. So, and they make an interesting team. They have pretty good, I mean, anyone who's reading Power Man and Iron Fist knows that Walker excels at kind of the interpersonal banter between characters. So, yeah, I would say it's worth, you know, it's worth giving a short leash to. You know, try it out for a few months, see how you like it. Who knows if it'll last beyond what's coming up with Marvel, you know, which we'll probably get to in the news, but, you know, we'll see.
Yeah. Cool. Doctor Strange?
I did read that. My shop had that. Well, that's a cool variant.
Yeah, mine here.
It's the Age of Apocalypse, or the Four Horsemen style of Doctor Strange. Let me get that a little better.
I'm going to be back in about 2 minutes, gentlemen.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's the cool cover. So, what are we thinking of Doctor Strange? I haven't been paying attention to any of the Last Days of Magic, other than what's actually in the Doctor Strange book itself. Mm-hmm. So clearly, some stuff jumped between the last time I read what was going on with Doctor Strange. I mean, he was kind of getting his ass beat, and in this, it's a let's run and get as many toys that are left that are still magical as we can kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
I read the one Last Days of Magic, and then I did not read the Deadpool one, but I don't know. I don't feel like you lost out on anything.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like it was hard to keep up with, but clearly something happened between the last I was reading, because the last I had read, you know, they basically had been gutted, and that's where they were at. You know, it was what's his name, the guy from the bar being killed, and that was pretty much the end of the issue.
Yeah, I had my shop had put that $5.99 book in my pull, and I was like, I'm not getting this. And they're like, well, no, we'll give it a discount, so you know, because we're sorry, that's our bad, we didn't ask. Because I say if it's something at that level, ask me before you put it in the pull. And so they're like, so I read that, Is there any other books besides Deadpool that are doing this?
Not that I saw.
No.
So I don't know where that... Did Deadpool really cover that much?
I don't know.
I think they intentionally jumped. What I saw when I flipped through Deadpool didn't look like it had anything else to do but Deadpool just dicking around with magic. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm liking the commentary in this because it speaks to me on a certain level. I'm a huge fan of old school sci-fi and all that, and how nowadays we want to cut to it and be like, no, science disproves all that. And I agree that that's kind of a social commentary in this story arc. I'm liking that. I wish they would cut to the bone on that a little bit more, but I'm enjoying that element.
Yeah, I continue to like the art. I enjoy the characters in this. I don't know that anything other than we once again address the, oh my God, you opened up the cellar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did anything happen in this issue other than to continue to reconfirm that magic is almost completely gone and they're potentially screwed? That was my only issue.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's fair.
That was my only issue with that. I mean, like I said, I'm still enjoying it, but this issue kind of spun its wheels as far as moving anything forward aspect. But I mean, I still like tons about it. Like I said, I love the art. I love the character design. I still am completely tickled by the anti-magic guys, by the science guys. I love those costumes, those big, goofy, round. Mm-hmm. To me, that just screams Kirby-esque kind of thing. I don't know.
Totally.
I like that. So every time I see them, I'm tickled by the way that they look and whatnot. And
Kahlo still drawing that book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So.
I felt that it was good that they had that sense of desperation, though. I mean, that's the problem. By trying to create the sense of desperation, you have to chew up a lot of the book to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. That's fair. To show them go through all the antics that they're going through just to get whatever hopefully magic thing might be in here, and it's still questionable. Did they use too many resources to get to the one thing they got, and is that really worth what they got ultimately at the end of the day? I mean, that's yeah. So I'm still really enjoying it. I like this take on the character. I like the art. I like
is
what
the first trade on that out?
Oh, I don't know. I would.
I believe so.
I think it is.
Yeah, this is 8, so I don't know.
Right, and the first trade would end before we get into the last days of Magic. Of course, that first trade's going to have hints that the last days of Magic are coming, but so I don't know how that would. I don't know what issue that would end at and how that would feel. Because I think you'd be reading it and feel like this thing's coming, and then not get it in that first trade.
That's Marvel.
Is that how that works? Okay. Yeah. Well, they're going to encourage me to read less and less as we go along here between the price point and this banner right here. That kind of.
See, that's why I got the variant.
Well, that banner wasn't on Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange hasn't started telling me that it's on the road yet.
Yes.
And this was completely necessary to have that on here. It contributed to the story 100%. I was okay, I get that now because Civil War is coming. There was no need for this whatsoever. I'm aware.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. They're clearly, these kids pick sides. In the science fair, we know that's really what starts the Civil War. So this is legit.
That just drove me nuts because I was thinking, there must be some kind of aggregator somewhere that says you have to have, like at Marvel, it's like, no, you have to have these on the books leading in so that people know it's coming, so they get excited for it.
Well, but there are people buying this, though, as a tie-in. I mean, I've watched videos where I've decided I'm going to get all the Civil War stuff, so I'm getting all the tie-in stuff. So luckily right now I have a decent paying job. I hope they got a really decent paying job because this is the road to. This isn't even tie-ins to the Civil War. This is, I don't know, supposedly veiled hints at it.
Yeah, I don't know, because I read a little bit of, not Uncanny Avengers, what was All New Avengers, and this just felt like a continuation of the relationships that started in that more than anything. You know, all the teenagers that are on the team kind of having their relationships, where Nova kind of has a crush on her, and Miles is trying to figure out things. Like, I liked this issue. I felt it was completely unnecessary to have the Civil War stuff on it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it irrelevant, right? Basically, there's a fun, somewhat inconsequential issue as far as, I mean, there's some social commentary in there about, because they basically are at the science fair, and it's like it's Connecticut versus New York versus New Jersey in this science fair, and they're all doing everything they possibly can to win because most of them are not rich kids and they need the best scholarships they can possibly get to get into the schools that they want to get into. Because and in the case of the superheroes that are in this, despite being superheroes, they still want to go on to college and do all that kind of stuff. I mean, they had these lives before they were superpowered, or at least Camilla does anyway, and she still feels like she wants to live some of that life besides just being a superhero. Well, her parents have an expectation of nothing else, even if she doesn't have the expectation, to go on and do all this other wonderful stuff. And so, there's some social commentary around that. To what degree will you go to win to get that best scholarship? And they kind of sabotage each other. And, one of the characters pulls out basically a pocket fusion reactor, and somehow it blows up and doesn't actually kill anybody, but it flattens the building they're in. I mean, there's a lot of suspension of disbelief in this. I mean, because of the type of thing it is. It was fun. It was fun and enjoyable from the aspect of they're all fun characters. Like I said, I don't know if this moved anything forward as far as character development per se or plot-wise, but
it says at the end, continued in Civil War II, and it's like, if I was reading Civil War II, what the hell does this have to do with them fighting?
Right, yeah, because the end of this is like a newscaster, isn't the end of it? The newscaster going, meanwhile in other news, some child, in Madison Square Garden, blew up Madison Square Garden with a pocket fusion, thing, and then the Inhumans, is it the Uncanny? Yeah, it's the Uncanny Inhumans. It's Medusa and Ilk sitting on New Attila going, kind of, they're having a conversation and they're watching the news, and one of the characters there that I don't recognize in this goes, there's something, I feel something in the Force, and then it goes, then it says continued in Secret Wars. So I hope that doesn't mean anything that has to do with Kamala Khan is continuing in Secret Wars, because I'm not touching it.
Well, the only thing I could think of, have you read the original Secret Wars?
No.
Okay, what precipitated the... Well, no, I read it on a whim, too. Like, if you ever do it, that'll be how you read it. But it's teenagers blowing up something that causes the initial Civil War.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I saw the kind of callback to
That's
that
funny.
a little bit. It's, Speedball blows up all this stuff. Yeah. And it takes out all these civilians, and so they're like, we need a registration act.
Okay. Well, that's funny. That's funny and kind of cool. Then I totally get it then, because then they're doing a wink and a nod back to the original thing. So okay, that cool.
And they turn Speedball, who's like a fun-loving character, into this dark character for a while, and then no one liked it, and so they changed him back.
Yeah.
Wait, that's Ditko's Speedball?
Yeah, that's Spider-Man Speedball. Yeah.
That was the last character that Ditko came up with for Marvel.
Oh,
when
really?
He came back, in the early 90s, they brought him back. Jim Shooter, for all his faults, and they were many, was always good about trying to reach out to Ditko and get him work during his tenure as Marvel.
Yep. That's interesting. I had no idea. Yeah. He was in Spider-Man. He was in the New Warriors. Yeah.
So that's he's got the little. They look like multicolored bubbles that he throws.
Yeah.
That's.
Okay. Any other Marvel books you want to talk about?
When it comes to Meathead Comics, the totally awesome Hulk. If
Brained by Thor.
Yeah. If Delmundo's coming to this, I can't wait. But it's still good art. I mean, this is originally it was Cho, now it's Choi. What?
Wait, who's coming to the book?
Travis said he thought Delmundo might be doing the art on this.
I need to check Twitter. I'm sure he told me.
All right.
Yeah, there was a conversation somewhere on Twitter about. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. the this is just the second part of a two-parter where Hulk had blacked out. He's trying to figure out what he did while he blacked out. Thor says that he went to Asgard and ruined some things, stole some metal, and this is an Enchantress issue. They, quickly wrap it up. It was good. It is a meathead comic. I liked it. It was just nice for that. So.
Yeah, cool.
Isn't that an oxymoron, a meathead comic?
Yeah. So just glancing at some of the comments, and Millie Akers says that Speedball became penance.
Yeah.
Loris was spikes that constantly penetrated his skin, and it was incredibly depressing. It sounds like it. That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Well,
oh my god.
He was part of Thunderbolt, so I loved him for that.
Okay, but still, oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Because they were taking down superheroes, and his power changed to almost a straight kinetic idea. It was good on that.
So I'll briefly talk about Patsy Walker, aka El Cat #6, with guest artists Natasha and Jury on it. No. Okay, we can move on. Any other Marvel books want to talk about?
Well, I'll just do a Thor filler issue. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Really?
So what? Does this go back and talk about Odin's Son, or is this still talking?
Yeah,
Are we?
It's Odin's Son still, and the art is something else. I'll tell you that. But I like it.
Yeah.
I like it on Harrow County. I don't like it here.
All right.
Like that's the way I'd put it. Like it's
Tyler Crook's doing that issue?
What did you say?
Tyler Crook's drawing that issue?
No, but it's Harrow County art. That's what it looks like.
But it's not the same artist. Okay.
No, it's just that style.
My bad.
Yeah.
So they'll have messed up noses. Is that what you're telling me?
Messed up faces. Everything is kind of mushed and grayed. But I mean, there are times like when we get this Hulk figure, I thought was really awesome. But it's one out of every 6 panels, and then of course. Yeah.
But the end, it switches back to the old art style, and then we realize that we're getting back to things. So
they were using watercolors, and they let the watercolor palette all kind of mix together, so it was all just kind of one giant color mostly that they're putting down. Is that kind of?
It looked like
you try mixing the colors on the side of the instead of in the pots, you have it on the lid, and then the water kind of all runs it together, and you're just kind of.
It looks like I dropped the comic book in a puddle and tried to salvage it, essentially.
I do like that art sometimes.
Yeah. Like in the right format, it works well. And it was interesting to learn more about Odin's Son, but I like him, and I know this is anyone on the internet right now that has a problem, go write a blog. I like him as a background character in this run. I like him as kind of trying to figure out his new life, trying to figure out
what is he now?
What's my place in the world? Like, as you get older in life, you have that, and where you're kind of losing what you were, your identity, what you thought you were, and he's going through that. I actually find that interesting. If they had a comic book of that, I might be tempted to read it, but it'd be $3.99, so I doubt I would. But having him in the background, well, she's trying to figure out this new life of her own, where she's trying to okay, how do I handle this? I want everyone to think I'm handling this, but secretly, I like her inner dialogue that way. If she's like, holy shit. And then having to be out there and be like, no, I know what I'm doing, and her different approach to being Thor, how she's going against Thor's enemies, and they're thinking how Thor would do it, and she is Thor now, but how the old Thor would do it, and she's doing it through her intelligence and through her wit, and they don't know how to handle that. I'm loving that element, so I almost prefer him as a background character.
Cool.
So
it's good that they're not just completely, he's forgotten. I mean, because that doesn't make sense. So.
No, but it was kind of comical at first because he was trying to figure out he was a detective for a while there, but then they have those real serious moments of going well, what is my place now? And I'm liking that.
Mm-hmm.
So I take it, since you said, does anyone have any other Marvel? You're not touching this anymore?
No. I'm still reading Daredevil. No, I just was.
It's just
Hellcat was next on my list, and it was not fun. So.
Oh.
Whoa, that cover!
Yeah.
Are they both wearing pants?
Yeah. As much as Elektra ever wears pants.
Yeah.
You know, she does wear a lot of pants in the issue, though. She's dressed in civvies a lot.
Yeah. So, what do we think, Cece?
Well,
Daredevil number 7.
as you can see from my recent video, this is 7, so I have decided to continue with this for at least a couple more issues. It's weird because I think a lot of the complaints people had, especially like Wednesday Serial, are kind of not there anymore. But at the same time, I feel like this has... I hate that I'm going to say this. I feel like the Netflix show is starting to influence this more and more instead of it being its own thing. And I'm not liking that element of it. I haven't finished season 2 of Daredevil yet, even. I'm not saying it sucks. I'm actually enjoying it, but I ran into Next Generation, and I'm rewatching that right now. I'm sorry. But I feel like that's influencing too much, and I'd rather see those things separate from one another.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you say influence, it's not like it's telling the same story, because it's not.
No.
But, of course, Elektra is in this now, and she hadn't been. You know, and they clearly have, I mean, I can definitely see what you're saying. I don't know that I can explain exactly how that is, but it definitely has a feel of being influenced by the show. I mean, mm-hmm. I like the book. I kind of like to get the artist back that was on it instead of not that Bufgnani is bad. It's just not as strong. And they're because he's doing the art in the same way and they're coloring it the same way. It's just not as strong as.
It felt a little more raw with the other artists. Like it was like more pulpy yet raw, and this feels very cleaned up to me. Right. And it's kind of like no, because I think the art lent to the character the change in the character. He is not Matt Murdock that we know and love. This is a guy that's changed. I read Secret Wars, and I'm not quite sure what that change is, but I wanted to see him explore that and go through that. And it seems like maybe they're one, TV show, and two, kind of like, wait a minute, we're not taking him too far here. He's still Matt at the end of the day. Like, where he's like, I'm going to help my friend and all that, so he's not heartless, like the other Matt said.
Yeah, I like I'm still curious, they're dangling the what did he do to erase everybody's memories except for Foggy's? You know, there's something dangling out there. I'm hoping that becomes some aspect of the story more. I like this kind of what's going on. Somebody's after him, and what a way to go after him is by screwing. Huge mistake, quite honestly, but they use Elektra to go after Daredevil. It would almost
be better if they went after him directly instead of her, because she's far more dangerous than him.
Well, right. I mean, I like the aspect towards the end of this where she's basically had somebody put some mental cues in her and have had her do some things, and those mental cues get shut down, and she realizes that she doesn't have. I mean, basically, she got implanted in her mind that she thought she had a daughter, and I had all these experiences with trying to stay away from a daughter and having to worry about a daughter and all that, and then just suddenly towards the end of the issue, to find out that that's not the case, that she doesn't. That wasn't real. It was an implant to make her think that Daredevil stole her daughter and maybe she was going to kill him or something. And that anguish that she would feel and the relief at the same time, that could have been really cool. I mean, I liked it in here, but I think it could have been really cool if they would have committed to it a little more. Yeah, maybe drug it out a little bit more, and then really, I would have liked to have really seen her go through that.
This is what I was thinking when I was reading this. They should have had a third party involved, like they do, but something with a face to it that is implanting this in her. So it gets to the point where, and she doesn't know. She doesn't know, and she goes after this third party, and she goes through all like the hand or whatever you're gonna throw in her way, and then at the end of that arc, you go, actually, the kid never existed.
Right.
I think that had so much more of an impact on her.
But then that would have been an Elektra story, right, instead of a Daredevil story.
True, but I would have.
Well, yeah, same here. I would have been all over it. It would have been great, right?
Yeah. Well, you could have Daredevil along. I think Daredevil shouldn't have known. I think Daredevil should have been like, it's possibly mine. Like, believe her story. It's possibly mine, and I have these feelings. That the relationship I have with her is the way it is, and he goes along with her on the adventure. I think then you'd add devastation to Daredevil too, like him going, oh, whoa. Like it'd be harder on her, obviously, but I think that would have been interesting. And it felt like this was kind of wrapped up. Anyway.
That's all the Marvel books I've got.
Oh, I'm interested to hear this news because you guys have hinted at something that I have clearly missed.
So let's talk Captain America, yeah?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, Ryan's the only person here who's actually in the book, so to some degree, I mean, I can have an opinion about the outline of it, but I unfortunately have not read it to know what the delivery is, to have a sense of, is there a nuance to the Hail Hydras?
Yes, there is. Whoops! Don't let me step on your toes.
No, go ahead.
So with this book, I kind of have a little theory that runs contrary to what everyone else is saying. Obviously, it looks like to have Steve Rogers be a Hydra agent is either a retcon hustle. Not that DC would throw any of that at us this week too themselves, would they? Or he's maybe controlled by that Cosmic Cube kid out of because the living Cosmic Cube made him younger again. I'll quickly go through the particulars of the book, which actually I thought, despite my reservations about what they're doing, I thought it was really well written. I have a love-hate relationship with Nick Spencer. I love his writing, but the one time I sent him anything on Twitter, he jumped down my throat for about 5 minutes, just brutally, because and I didn't even really mean anything by it, but I liked the Sam Wilson Captain America thing when that started, until it got all sidetracked into what it got sidetracked into. And I sent him a tweet that, I like your Sam. It looks to me like he'd feel the burn. And Nick Spencer is a huge Hillary Clinton supporter and hates Bernie Sanders. And I didn't realize that. And I didn't even mention that, I'm a Sanders guy. I just said, it looks to me like Sam Wilson would feel the burn, which is a reasonable enough reading of that character, I would think. But he just went mercilessly at me for like 5-10 minutes on there about how all us Sanders people are bastards. So personally, I have reservations about the guy, but as a writer, I love his work. And he does real good work here. It starts off, now the art is a little iffy. The faces look a little strange on some of the people. They're ill-defined. The artist is a guy named Jesus Saiz. I've never heard of the guy. But we're starting out with flashbacks to the 20s, and we see Steve Rogers' dad beating the crap out of his mom right in the middle of the street because she went to some kind of a civic meeting with Steve, and who's 5-6 years old. And, it's been established he was an abusive, alcoholic guy and all that. So she's rescued from this beating by a concerned citizen in a red hat who then takes them all out to dinner. And then we get to the present day. And this was an interesting character choice, I thought. Steve Rogers is younger again, but they're obviously portraying Sharon Carter, who he's back together with, as being well into her 50s. Her face is wrinkled. She looks like a regular person, as opposed to a lot of other women in comics. I don't know if you can see much definition of her face there. I'll find another page later. So he's just fighting guys, and it's a suicide bomber for Hydra. And we find out that Hydra's back making inroads at the neighborhood level. The Red Skull is working as a neighborhood organizer for Hydra, and he's going around doing these Munich beer hall. It's reminiscent, but knowing Spencer's leanings, it's very much, all the rhetoric the Red Skull uses, you would hear out of a certain presidential candidate today. And if you know Nick Spencer, you know who he's taking a shot at here. So it sounds very Trumpian, if that's a word. It will be soon if it's not yet. And so the Hydra's getting these guys, and Spencer does a nice job of making the suicide bomber for Hydra a regular human. He is just a guy who ended up in jail for some bullshit petty crimes, and he just is more of a joiner than a leader. And he always wanted to belong to something, and when he got hooked up with Hydra, he felt like he belonged. And, his life ends. He blows himself up, and then we're introduced to a couple of sidekicks for Captain America that I'm not familiar with. Jack Flag and Free Spirit.
Oh, yeah.
You know either of them?
Yeah, Jack Flag, I know. I like him.
All
What's
right.
with the
He
hat?
seems like kind of basically a Bucky stand-in or a Nomad stand-in. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't want to sell either of them short. Or like a D-Man stand-in, you know? D-Man is still around, isn't he? In a Sam Wilson book, I think.
Yes.
So anyway, you know, they take care of, or I shouldn't say take care of the suicide bomber because the poor guy blows himself up. And then Steve is back here. This will give you a better sense if you can see the art on this page of what Sharon's looking like now. So that's interesting to me. She's obviously into her 50s, and Steve is a 30-year-old again, you know? So that'll be an interesting dynamic going forward, unless we get sidetracked by all kinds of tie-ins. Then we're back to the flashbacks, and the lady in the 20s has taken Mrs. Rogers and young Steve out to dinner, and it's interesting. They cleared the whole restaurant out and allowed it to stay open late, and she seems to have some ulterior motives for taking the Rogers family under her wing. And those ulterior motives prove to be, I'll just skip ahead a little bit. We get some stuff with Baron Zemo. He's recruiting a new supervillain team in that lawless country in the Marvel Universe. What do they call that place? Bagalia. The city with no laws. So Zemo's getting a bunch of third-raters back together, and Jack Flag and Free Spirit, and I mean, he's even got the new Plant Man on his team. And these are just written like incompetent goof-offs, like Nick Spencer's Superior Foes or the Guys in a Fix. They're humor characters, which Spencer's great at. So they're getting in a fight on a plane, and by the way, Cap's new shield, how does that work? Like, it's not aerodynamic. He can't fling it around off things like his old round one. You know, so I don't know. This one's not going to work out so well. So they win that fight on the plane, and they're taking this Hydra scientist. You learn that there's two factions fighting for control within Hydra. Zemo wants to take things back over, but the Red Skull's kind of the man now in the wake of whatever happened with the Pleasant Hill standoff. Then we got one more flashback sequence, and this was really well done. So, you know, she's like, oh, how can my family ever repay you to this nice lady? Oh, you know, I'll help you find work. I know business people around town. And it turns out she is a recruiter for Hydra at the neighborhood level, which might sound far-fetched until you realize that in World War II here, you know, prior to World War II here, there were neighborhood Nazi clubs, especially along the East Coast, New Jersey, New York, but all over the country. There were like local, often they were disguised as non-interventionist clubs, like we just don't want the U.S. to get involved in the war in Europe. But a lot of them, you know, basically they were open pro-Nazi neighborhood organizations. And so that's what's going on with Hydra. And then on this plane, hauling this scientist, Zemo's knocked out. Jack Flag says he's going to free the scientist guy, and Steve's like, I'm really sorry you have to do that. And he throws Jack Flag out of the plane. And then we see, finally, the famous splash page, or infamous, with Steve saying, Hail Hydra to the scientist. And the implication, and mind you, this is all it is, because it's not spelled out, is that he's been a Hydra double agent ever since he was a little kid. Because, you know, just the page before, they're showing how his mother was recruited into Hydra. So people are up in arms.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of theories about how it's, you know, retconning that will be retconned in just a few issues by, like I was saying, explaining that it was that Cosmic Cube kid. What was her name? I can't remember.
Started with an A or something, didn't it?
Yeah, I've read that too.
It wasn't Karnak.
No.
Anyway, the kid who was the Cosmic Cube did something to his mind when she made him young again or something.
But
That's possible. I would say far more likely is that this is actually very clever plot structure.
Yeah.
Because throughout you're having talk about like, oh, I saw heroes when I was young. I was always looking for someone to look up to. And what I think is going to happen is it's going to reveal that Steve's mom saw that Hydra note, said, screw this, and tore it up. Steve has, said, Hail Hydra, because he's imitating Zemo's voice. I think this, because there's probably a voice recorder on the plane, or like surveillance, let's say, and we can't, it's a comic book. We can't tell people's voice intonations apart, right? So Steve could be imitating his voice, and he threw Jack Flag out the plane, and that's all part of the shtick because he's got a hidden parachute or something. It can all be explained. You don't need to retcon it back. Look, Captain America is not a member of Hydra, but people are up in arms, and I can see why. Is because Hydra is an offshoot of the Nazis.
Yeah.
Jack Kirby and Joe Simon were both Jewish. Jack Kirby served in World War II in the European theater and fought the Nazis. Jack Kirby was there for the liberation of a couple of the camps. A lot of people don't realize that. So, even if it's just a plot stunt, which I'm sure it is.
That's what it is.
To imply that is a bit tin-eared or tone-deaf.
Well, it's okay. It's issue 1 of a new run. So they are already saying this is what the comic's going to be from here on out. I mean, immediately I was thinking you're going to do this in one issue. You're not going to read like 4 or 5 issues. And if on some level it would be interesting if they rolled with him as a villain. I get that a big group of people would not want to roll with that at all. One thing I have to add is people did come to me on Twitter in private. Don't you feel bad that he's a Nazi now? Here's one thing, and I know that my U.S. people are going to flip out. There were other countries fighting the Nazis in World War II. I don't want to, I'm sorry that hurts some of your feelings.
Okay, don't try redoing history, CDC. That's really not what really happened. It's all about us. Come on.
And so to come to me and say, well, he's a symbol of what fought against the Nazis. True to a degree, but he's not the only, I felt like that was very Amerocentric. And I live in the United States now, but the people that freed my family members were not from the United States. They were from Canada. And so, I mean, I think they wanted me to have this emotional, no, you can't do that with Captain America. My only critique is, without the wings on the side of his head, he does look like a broken condom. And I don't know if I like that.
The new costume is bad. The new shield is bad. The art is, the art is what it is. I mean, it's not, like I say, a lot of the faces are really kind of weird the way this guy draws them. I don't think it was terribly illustrated throughout, which is one critique I forgot to level at Rebirth. Really dull house art style there. But this was an interesting art style, but it's not terribly effective. But it didn't wreck the book for me. I think Spencer, turned in a crackerjack script. I just wonder about how tasteful that ending is, not because of the character and what he symbolizes, but just because of who created him. And I think, yes, these are corporate characters and all that, but I think if you've got, if you had, let's say that Walt Disney had fought in World War II and helped liberate the camps. Not that he did. He was one of those, he stayed home during the war.
And not only that, there's rumors he's not a fan of my people. So
no, he's not. Walt Disney was a bigoted anti-Semite. That's not a rumor. That's a fact. But let's just say that, let's say he'd done that, and then they did a retconning of Mickey Mouse where he was a Nazi. It's not that it was wrecking Mickey Mouse that would do it, but it would be an insult to the memory of his creator if his creator had been a Nazi fighter.
I hear that.
That's what I take here. And yes, it's not going to stick. It is a stunt,
I think,
but is the implication offensive enough to the memory of the creator? And I'd say in this case, that's a strong argument. That's a strong. I think Jack Kirby is not just another comic creator who came up with a few things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the new thing that they're doing is that, two things. One, nobody but me is watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's
And-
true.
In the whole
And in
country, I
that-
think. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And in that, they're trying to make Hydra Roxxon. It is the corporate evil. It is this ever-going company. I think they're trying to steer away from the whole idea of them being the Nazis. They're trying to make them this bigger, overarching Illuminati-like evil. And
okay.
I think that's part of how they think they can get away with all this, is that Hydra isn't Hydra anymore. And number two, if you had had an American education, you would know that Steve Rogers punched out Hitler,
Yes.
and that was
This
the most
is true.
important thing in American history.
Oh no, I think it was when Brad Pitt killed him.
Yeah,
At the
the
end of
second
the
time.
Glorious
Killing
Bastards.
some Nazis.
But here's the thing, and I'm not like acting like I'm the spokesperson for Jewish people. I'm not. Well, I don't want that role. But sometimes I feel like in this community, I kind of have to be that guy.
Yeah.
There are far more offensive things to me than this. Far more. I saw a lot of people saying this is an insult to Jewish people, and then I see these same people in December saying, why the hell do I have to say Happy Holidays? You know, it's like, no, you can't pick and choose which is
Oh,
more.
yeah.
You know, like, no.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
this is the least offensive thing to me compared to other things. And I don't feel like I should have to come forth and be like, this is really offensive and all that. If the story folds out that he was like, no, I'm not even Hydra, I'm a modern Nazi, then I'd be like, whoa, okay, this is, you know, like, I think you're cutting out a huge timeline in the comic books history where Hydra was completely different from the, you know, 1940s incarnation. I mean, the incarnation that came out of the 1940s, I should say. You know, in the 80s and 90s, Hydra went through a lot of changes, and that was a part of the story arcs of Hydra. Like, when they resurrected Red Skull, he was a corporate guy. He eventually became, I mean, like Lex Luthor, essentially, of the Marvel Universe. So I get what people are saying, and I do think there's a fair argument to say, you know, are you doing some damage to Jack Kirby by doing this? But I don't feel like they're making it a blatant Nazi. I felt that was a little too of an extreme.
Well, you didn't read this book, though, CDC?
Mm-hmm. I did not.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Because, I'm sure they did all this other crap with Hydra over the years, but in this particular issue, given the historical flashbacks that they use and stuff,
Mhm.
they are clearly casting
Yeah.
Hydra in a Nazi equivalent role. Now,
And
I
that's-
don't think it's an insult to every Jewish person in the world, you know, to imply for one cliffhanger, which will be explained by next issue, that
Exactly.
Captain America might be a Nazi. But I do think I do think that it is a little bit of a slight, and yes, he's dead, but whatever. I do think it's a slight to Jack Kirby in a way. And here's what shocks me, and I had mentioned this to Travis and Mike before we went on the air, was Tom Brevoort's the editor on this book, and he is a massive Kirby fan, to the extent any Marvel employee can be called a real Kirby fan. He had a letter printed in the third or fourth issue of Captain Victory when he was a 15, 16-year-old kid. So, you know, he would never let anything permanent stand, you know what I mean? But I do think it's a bit, I thought it was an effective comic. I'm not slamming that. But
Clearly.
I do think it was a little bit tone deaf, not towards any particular demographic group of people, but just on a personal level to the Kirby legacy. You know, because not just because Jack was Jewish, but because Jack fought Nazis and helped liberate the camps. You know,
That's fair. I would also say that Nick Spencer has done a phenomenal job of getting outside press. I don't think anyone will deny that. He did that with the earlier
yeah.
Captain America issues. I mean, say what you will about the implications or whatever. He has gotten so much outside press to his books. It's crazy.
If he's half as a dog on the bone to the outside press as he is to people he disagrees with on Twitter, man, you know, I wouldn't want to be in his way if I was a reporter. I'd just be like, whatever you say, Nick, I'll print it up. You know?
Yeah.
He's-
I mean, the biggest thing for me about the whole thing with the explosion on the internet about the whatnot is people tend to forget it's a comic book. There's
Mhm.
more story to be told. I mean, the book ends on this, you know, crazy ass cliffhanger. Oh my God, you know, the ultimate Nazi fighter has just, you know, claimed allegiance to a fringe, to a fringe group of the Nazis. But it's a comic book, and if you have like anything beyond a zero understanding of a comic book, the next issue it's going to be. I mean, it could all literally be cleared up in the next issue.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so the craziness over that, is one thing. Now, I can understand if somebody is personally upset over the idea that he is that, because if he really does represent that for you personally, cool. I can get it. I can completely get behind being upset by that. I'm not upset by it, because whereas I can empathize with somebody who might be of Jewish descent and is upset by that, it could clearly be upsetting for them. But I don't know that means that this isn't a story that shouldn't be told. For me, I'm going to wait judgment to see how the story gets told. If it's utter shit and completely goes down maintains a road of insensitivity around the whole thing, then clearly we'll look at it then and go, oh my God, what were they doing? There isn't enough, for what you've said, there is not enough there to lend itself to the general hysteria over what has happened, other than the people who are keeping track of Marvel's coffers are laughing their asses off because the money's piling up, because everybody's going out to buy the book to see what the hell happened for themselves, which is awesome. It's great. I mean, there's this high level of conversation about the comic book. That's good. That's what we're wanting to some degree. I'm not. I mean, I get the idea of, how is that? With Jack Kirby being the creator and Jack Kirby's own personal experience, with the character and with the era that the character comes from and all of that. I don't know Jack personally. I don't know how upset he would be. Because he would probably know what the end result's going to be. So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think. I mean, everything I've ever read, just by looking at what Jack put on the page, this isn't a storyline that I would think would be beyond him. If somehow they truly take his entire legacy and and taint the entire thing now with this new brush that he has always been, actually this sinister fellow, if they spend the next 3 issues showing us backstories of him breaking good scientists' necks after he supposedly saved them or whatever, then yeah. But I don't see that. I don't see that being.
No,
the
when
case.
does Civil War start up? Is that next month or something?
Well, see, and that's the other part.
So this will probably be. This is probably the first of like a 2-parter, and then that book is going to get sucked into Civil War.
What I was getting at, and I don't know if I said it clearly enough, is if that was the worst thing that ever happened to me for what I am, I would be much happier as a person. Like, right. You guys are saying, like, oh, why are you saying it? No, you don't understand. I've had far worse things happen to me because of my last name than some stupid comic book. Like, to me, it's like, you don't tell me to be offended by it.
Yeah, but when your last name is Manson, you have to expect that.
That's not a Jewish name. But for me, that's to tell me I should be offended by this. Yeah, it bothered me a little bit, to be fair. Like, it was like, I don't know if I like that, but it's like, to act like I should be like, this is the worst thing that they've ever done. No. I had money thrown at my feet, as a teenager, be like, oh, see, he'll pick it up. Like, there's worse things that happened. Yes.
Oh, man.
I grew up in a rural area. So, like, no. Like, and you know what? I don't represent, there are people that are offended by it. That's their thing. But to act like this is some big, terrible thing, I've had worse things happen to me in my personal life. Yeah. So...
Well, and there are people who will be upset, and that's their prerogative, just by dint of the fact that it's a Nazi story, and they if they don't completely paint the Nazis with a utter evilness, and they cannot have any depth beyond that. Otherwise, if you would lay any sympathy towards them at all, clearly that's completely wrong, and realistically,
That is wrong.
they did horrible things, but they were human beings too, or some of them were. I mean, Mangala clearly wasn't, but you know what I mean. It's not as easy as, or it shouldn't be as easy as they're just this evil thing, and that's it. So.
Well, the other thing too is, was this even the most dumbest piece of nerd rage for the week? Because I don't think it was.
No.
I think when I was looking around this week, because I think that honestly, like I was looking for, I hate to say it, I was looking for any other, if they made similar arguments to my views on Rebirth. So just looking for negative views on Rebirth, and more than the criticisms of. There was one other guy who did a Watchmen-centric criticism of it, but everyone else I saw who had a beef with Rebirth was all because they made one 10th-rate character, Aqualad, who's not even the original Aqualad, is he? They made him gay. Who in the hell cares? I couldn't believe the amount of nerd rage I saw over that.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, with the Captain America thing, I did see some people that were like, this is offensive, but for the most part, I saw people making fun of it more than anything. I saw people making like memes out of it and stuff like that. Like the two things that are offensive are the memes and jokes that have to do with Auschwitz and stuff like that. I did not see that.
I'm sorry, though there are lines. I mean, and clearly my life personally is not affected in any way, shape, or form by those things.
I don't know who you're following, but I did not see that.
Well, no, it was second-handed, through a whole bunch of people. Tweeted, and it was along the lines of, this is offensive, not even remotely something we should be joking about.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't. Anybody was making fun of it. What was the other one? And going so far as to threatening any creator's life based on this piece of work is crazy person also. That goes that's into the realm of nuts, and it happened. Let me tell you. The day that book came out, I do follow Nick Spencer. Just looking at the stuff that was leveled at him was beyond crazy. I mean, there's one thing to say, I hate your book, dude. This was horrible, or whatever, or you should know better. But then taking it to the next level, and I would be willing to bet that most of those people are. I mean, when I don't know, it was nuts. It was nuts.
So, like,
you must be staying off social media then.
I read, well, no, yeah, I have been, because I've been doing all kinds of stuff.
No, I mean, Spencer must be.
But, no, he's not, because he's on Twitter all the time, like, talking about, like, oh, how crazy is this? And to me, it's no comic book. If they made a comic book talking about how great Hitler was, I would never threaten someone's life because of it. And that is a man that, I was raised to just revile. And I'm sure those comic books exist. Not in the mainstream stores and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was called Holy Terror by Frank Miller, and
you don't need to add fuel to that fire with me. But I think threatening someone's life for their art goes again. Like if you're saying, "Oh, this is offensive," that's more offensive because you're actually doing what they wanted. They wanted to censor art in that sense. They wanted to kill anyone that was a dissenting opinion or anything like that to what they believed. So in a way, you're being a huge hypocrite by challenging him on that. And a lot of these people are like, you'll see in their Twitter profile, I'm pro-free speech. Well, no, you're not. If someone says something you disagree with in that sense, threatening their life is not pro-free speech.
Right. At any rate, so, I mean, for me personally, I can clearly understand how people could be upset by what happened. Some of the level of rage, I think people need to dial back and think about the fact that this comic book, it ends on this crazy note, which for a comic book, that's the exciting thing. It's supposed to kind of do that. The next issue clearly is going to answer, to some degree, a lot of that, and
or the next one or the next one.
Right, and it's going to be part of the story. It's going to be part of the story clearly, and realistically, we all know that that there's no way that long-term Captain America is part of Hydra.
I joked about it on Twitter because someone was like, "This is just like what they did to Hal Jordan in the night." I'm like, "No, they're not doing it on that level." And Hal Jordan did commit genocide in that, and I didn't hear anyone talking about, yeah, I think I've never, and you shouldn't use your anecdotal, but I've never felt that from any art ever. It's like I got like there's some writers I just won't read their work because I feel like they offend me in some of the positions they hold. Like I just won't do it. That's where you should be more than anything else with this, not to the point where you're threatening them. You should say, okay, they've clearly lost a fan, they've lost someone that's going to read their work or look at their art.
And it also feels, one of the things I thought was funny, absolutely hilarious. I mean, I literally was laughing out loud over it. Was I saw somebody basically, I don't know the exact quote, but they were saying, boy, this Nick Spencer dude, how he's writing Captain America is horrible. I wonder what that writer of Sam Wilson Captain America thinks of this. It's the same guy. It's the same guy. And if you even if you pay attention to what, I mean, like Ryan was alluding to, if you look at Spencer's Twitter feed at all, clearly he is, a left-leaning individual and whatnot. He is not going to be pro-Nazi. It's not going to happen at the end of the day. It's not a story that he's truly going to tell. So, yeah.
I haven't followed him that super close. Is he really that left-leaning?
Oh, yeah.
Because I got the impression he was more of a centrist because he was.
Yeah. Well, okay. Like I don't know how you make that judgment, because first and foremost, you have to is your center my center? Is CD Center's is my center? So I don't know how you make that statement. Clearly, he would be not conservative.
Yeah, he takes some real shots at he equates Red Skull with Trump in this book.
Yeah,
There's no
and that would be fair. I mean, that's kind of his take. I'm just saying that's his take on a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, he is definitely. I mean, the whole Sam Wilson thing when it starts out with they're on the border, which of course him on in that comic book on the border, and everybody that got so upset and offended that these people who are protecting our border were implied that they were racist and whatnot. Well, yes, because the guys that were protecting the border are part of a cult that are racist. I mean, but that's Nick.
That's why I said what I said to him. Because I thought it looked
which to me is hilarious, because he probably spends at least 50% of his time on Twitter going after the Bernie Bros and whatnot. So you saying that is absolutely hilarious.
Into a trap I didn't even know it.
Yeah, you walked right into it.
I think I just started following him that day or something.
So did Trump really tweet about this comic, or was that a fake Photoshop?
No, that's fake.
Yeah, okay. I was about to say that didn't seem real, because I thought it was more characters, in fact.
Did you see the meme with Batman holding the Watchmen button and saying "Hail Hydra"?
Yeah. I've seen more of that than anything else. I saw the Spider-Man where he's like, "I actually killed Uncle Ben," and then Batman says, "I actually killed my parents." I think that's kind of fun. Cool. In a way, you get the point of it. It's not. I don't know. And look, we've talked about it ad nauseum here.
Yeah.
So I mean,
So any other Marvel news that we think we want to talk about?
One thing. We didn't bring it up. Did you guys' store have placards? Marvel Now they're relaunching again.
See, that's what I was wondering.
Marvel Now again. So it really is Marvel Now, right?
Well, no, it should be Marvel What Now. But it's just called Marvel Now again. It's not all new or all new, all different. It said the thing in my store said September 2016, and just Marvel Now. So when does Civil War end? Is it going to be about September?
Probably.
Well, I don't know. Okay. The way Secret Wars ended, how?
Yeah.
It'll drag on to December. But do we really know what Marvel Now is, though? Do we know what it's actually going to be? I mean, we don't have enough yet, other than them just flashing that damn thing up, right, to really know.
Well, it's Marvel. They're starting over at number 1 again.
Yeah, but that's I'm used to that now. It's not that doesn't.
I'm not used to it. I'm numb to it. So
there you go. Excellent point.
Yeah, that doesn't faze me anymore. But I think they're going to do.
I know it is. Marvel Now, they're moving to the new price point.
Yeah. Now a whole lot more.
$4.99. Well, that's why when we were talking Nighthawk earlier. That's one of those books that I could see if they are relaunching again. I could see something like that, a marginal title, not coming out the other side of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. That kind of is what they do with these. Is kind of spring cleaning. Like if you look at a lot of what DC is doing, a lot of books are just disappearing that are not.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like a lot of times when they go to these new number ones.
Looking at the comments past the Nazi stuff and whatnot.
What?
Yes, Millie Akers is saying that Miles Morales is going to be the Spider-Man
people that fuck off.
in the anime movie. No. Nobody's saying anything bad. They're just rolling over the same stuff that we were as we were talking about it. But anyway,
okay.
in the animated movie, Miles Morales is going to be Spider-Man. So they're, at least in the cartoon, we're going to get an entire generation of kids who think that Spider-Man is Miles Morales, which will be awesome.
Yeah.
Until they go to the movies and see that it's some white kid with a British accent playing the character there, then it'll be confusing. I mean, that's like my kids. My kids grew up with the Justice League cartoon. Green Lantern for them is Stewart. I mean, it's John Stewart, and who's Hal Jordan? I mean, I literally wasn't, other than a couple months ago, my daughter was asking me who Hal Jordan was because that wasn't Green Lantern. Anyway, and then also that they did they retitled their Marvel Dollar debuts and upped the prices of them to $3. So the Marvel Dollar books are now $3.
What are they calling it now? Because
I think they are Timely Comics. Yep, but I think that they're calling their $1 entry point reprints to Timely Comics and upping the price to $3. Three Timely Comics are solicited coming out next week. They're timely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because I feel like, I am in the DC crowd around here, and I always feel like maybe I'm too hard on Marvel, but they do stuff like that, and it's kind of like I can't. It's hard to defend something like that. And
well, especially they're not really reprinting classic stuff. They're reprinting stuff that you can probably find in the dollar bins at your store. So look there.
Yeah, if you have a store that does back issues and stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I get labeled a DC fanboy all the time and whatnot, and I would love to be more of a Marvel fanboy. Right now, I mean, this week, clearly I've got way more Marvel books than I have DC books and stuff, but that is going to radically change. They do make it more difficult. I buy a lot of books, and there are a ton of books out there competing for all of our dollars, and it makes it hard for me to take a risk or hang around.
Exactly.
When that book is that $1 more, it's a lot easier for me to go. I'll hang on to a crappier book at DC, not because it's a great because it's DC, but for that $1 less, it gives me the room to kind of go. Oh, I'll ride with this a little longer.
There's any weird chance that with Marvel now or Marvel
that they'd back the price up?
That they actually match DC's $2.99.
They back the price? No.
If it just somehow miraculously does phenomenally well, and there's no it's hurting their bottom line, which I think Marvel's at a point where, they're gonna do fine no matter what.
Yeah, they're selling the books anyway.
Yeah, so
none of us have stopped buying the books.
Well, I would say I buy less. I buy less Marvel because of that, though. I mean, and and like you said, I mean, when I'm factoring in what I'm gonna drop. If price doesn't play in, you're an idiot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, it definitely does.
Yeah.
It definitely does. I was jazzed for Coates' Panther book. I think we all were, right? Yeah. But after a couple of subpar issues, a couple of really bland, go-nowhere issues to start that off, I would have stuck with that at $2.99 probably all the way through Coates' 12-issue run, just because I'm confident that he's a good enough, talented enough writer to really right that ship at some point. But the first two issues have been horrendous, and I can't justify keeping dropping $4 a month on it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, I of course I get my books at a pretty healthy discount, so it's not quite as, but it still matters. It still matters.
Yeah,
The price still matters. My problem is that when they put out a new book, how much was the Nighthawk book? Was it just $3? Was it just $3.99.
It was only $3.99, but
Most of their number one books, though, most of the number one books have been coming at $4.
$4.99.
Yeah, right, $5
Yeah,
makes me
$5.
awfully hard for me to take a risk at $5.
And I don't think they're giving you more pages for that.
No.
You know, that Steve Rogers Captain America book,
or one
I
or
didn't
two
count
pages
it.
at most.
I didn't count it, the pages, but
Yeah.
if there's more, it's like maybe 4. You know what I mean?
And the Marvel books aren't consistent, right? They're anywhere between 20 to 24 pages.
Now, here's the deal. Marvel runs the ultimate hustle. The industry standard for publication is a 32-page publication, okay? But because Marvel prints the cover stock and the paper on the same stock, you're only getting 28 pages because they count the covers as exterior. So you get 20. Yeah, Image does the same thing, but I can forgive them for that. You know what I mean? They're an independent publisher. But for Marvel to do that is pretty. And Image doesn't do it on all their books. You notice some of them have a glossy cover.
Sure.
Certain Image titles have a glossy cover, but most of them don't. But none of the Marvels have.
And they do something with their covers and the interior of their covers. I mean, there's.
Yeah, but Marvel skirts the 32-page industry standard, which is technically a legal standard, by putting it up by putting the cover stock and papers in the same thing. So it's a 28-page comic, and you get 20 pages of editorial content, as opposed to DC standard is 22 pages editorial content.
Yeah. Wow. At any rate. So,
that being said, I'm reading some Marvel and I'm enjoying it. To those that watch this part, you know.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm not trying to say that it's all bad, it's all evil by any means. You know, there's, like I said, clearly right now I'm reading more of it. But to be straight up honest, there's another company. You know, there's another superhero company that's putting out books at a cheaper rate. The covers don't come apart in my hands quite so fast, and as of right now, once they get past the kickoff, they're not tied into some large event that happens every quarter.
Well, I saw something really interesting at the shop today, and I've heard this argument made by a lot of people. Is I've always said, why don't they go back to $1.99 and put this stuff on newsprint? I think it would work. But then people say, well, newsprint's too expensive now. It's actually more expensive than that other stuff.
It is.
I assume that. Guess what, though? The shop today, I saw something called Rock and Roll Autobiography Comics, Iron Maiden, brand new comic, $2.99 on newsprint, and Fantagraphics is putting out Hip Hop Family Tree every month now on newsprint. Half of DC's trades, like their not their new 52 trades, but their older stuff, like their Suicide Squad trades, their Spectre trades, are all on newsprint. I'm telling you, they have plenty of this stuff around. I think we could get monthly newsprint comics again. The stuff Marvel puts out, their paper is worse than newsprint.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that I had a conversation with Kelly Sue, and they were talking about putting Bitch Planet on newsprint to add to the kind of
aesthetics.
Right. And they were going to lose so much money on it that it was going to be so much longer before they saw money in pocket because of how much the product was going to cost them to put it on that kind of paper, that it was like it became a non.
But that could be Travis, because sorry to interrupt, but that could be just because Image doesn't have any newsprint. You know what I mean?
Oh, right. So you're saying that Marvel and DC, you think they're still sitting on warehouses of newsprint from 1981?
You bet they are. You bet they are. And Fantagraphics must be too, because if you remember back in the early issues of Hate and 8-Ball and Love and Rockets were all on newsprint. So and Hip Hop Family Tree's coming out every month now on newsprint. So I think that if somebody like Image probably never printed a newsprint comic. Their first books, like Spawn and stuff, were not on newsprint.
Or Baxter or better, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I will bet you that the big two, if they wanted to give us, a decent, go back to $1.99 and do it on newsprint, they could.
So
maybe fans wouldn't want it, but.
So CDC, you've got the one of the current trades of Doom Patrol. It's not newsprint, right?
Yeah, like, well, it is.
See?
But I have the older trade of this too, and it like the material feels different. I was just about to say, like it's newsprint, but it feels like
Right,
it's treated
it's-
with something.
Right. It's not. It's not. It's like the Baxter paper. It's that in between. Because we went from newsprint to like Baxter, and then we went to an even better quality of paper that.
Yeah, because I have the old trades of this, and they've fallen apart.
Mhm.
And it just feels completely different. I was going to say, I also have this trade, which everyone should get to. Just kidding. And, yeah, it's good.
Great. Yeah.
But this feels better than any Marvel comic that I'm getting right now, the material.
Oh, I believe it. Do
So
you have any of the Kirby Fourth World trades? Those are all on newsprint.
Yeah, I
And
do.
those
But
came out within the last few years.
it feels like me on the trades,
Are they-
Marvel uses different material almost. Because this feels...
Yeah. I guess I would have to look at the figure out what the production is of it. Because is it truly the traditional newsprint, or is it some sort of
Yeah.
thing that's like newsprint? I don't know. Because to me, it doesn't seem to make much sense to print it. I mean, at one point that was cheap paper, but I mean, everything says it's not, except you're saying some of the stuff is being printed in that. But I don't ever want it to go back to newsprint. I'm sorry. Unless there's something about the aesthetic of the comic that needs it to be newsprint. My comics look way better now than they did back then. The color bleed, all that stuff that happens along with the newsprint aspect of it. I mean, I can look at that stuff and go, nostalgia, that's great.
Yeah.
And for a certain look, that probably is still cool. But I don't want I don't want my Saga with the nice painted. Then they're to put that out on newsprint or something. So.
When I was reading Punk Rock Jesus, I thought, oh, this is newsprint, because it felt
Right.
like. But then I went and got some of my older comics. It's a different material.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at. Like this, I have the older version of this trade, and that's legit newsprint. This is almost like faux newsprint, if you know what I'm saying. Like, it's
Is that one of the new bumper volumes of Doom Patrol?
Yeah.
Like with 20 issues in it?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're saying that's not, but it's some kind of newfangled, thicker
Right.
newsprint or
Well,
something?
It's whatever the fibers are made out of are not exactly the same as what the old acid-induced newsprint stuff is. It's made of some other recycled, I'm sure, something that
Let's see. I think it says. Hold on, let's see.
it probably has shredded plastic in it and all kinds of good stuff. Will be my guess.
Paper from responsible sources. Let's see.
Yeah, it's not gonna tell you exactly, but I'm assuming that it's some sort of recycled something that's
But
not.
yeah, my point is those old Doom Patrol ones. I've had them for so long and read them so many times that they've fallen apart, and I feel like I could do the same amount of reading with this, and it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay, let's move on to independent books, since how it is already really late and we haven't even scratched what's my larger pile of stuff anyway. So
Oh boy.
not that I intend to talk about all of them, but so we want to talk about independent wise. Mike, you got any independent books this week?
Goyers. That's
I have that. I haven't read it yet, but please go through it because you can't spoil anything. Phenomenal art. Phenomenal art.
Phenomenal art, and as stupid as it sounds that it's squirrels and chipmunks and all these things, that it's not. They do it. I don't know how the writer does it to make it. You basically fall into the characters. It is almost a Game of Thrones style where there are so many characters. You do get to learn about them, but any of them could die. It's just such an immersive world, and it's all these different warring bands of animals, and this is post something has happened. They start each issue with what happened before the incident and then the incident afterwards. So you see people, and then people are no more. And I don't know. It's the first trade is out. This is the beginning of the new summer kickoff of it. And
Yeah.
CDC, I'll let you do any more, but it's
Okay,
just.
so quick question first. So this is issued what?
This is issue number 1 of 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of.
It's
written in.
Go ahead.
So it's written in little mini-series segments,
Yeah.
like chapters, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
So the next question is who puts this book out? Because
Devils do.
Devils do. Okay.
Yeah, it's like DaCosta got me on it, and I was just like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It harkens back to kind of those old, in a way, sword and sorcery, but not quite
Yeah.
comics. Like and I always feel like that's a void in my reading, in my pull. So I'm always having to pick that stuff up.
Yeah. If animals could be Mad Max, maybe I would say that's it has that feel where
Mhm.
some of the mice, their faces are all ripped up and torn up by either cats or some chemical has hit them. So it is just a totally huge world, very immersive. Where Ashley Witter, who writes it, has really given it a lot of thought and has just made this a solid world. So-
Travis, what's that book that I don't remember the name, but you read it, and it's kind of similar like that. It's anthropomorphic, and like it comes out only like once a year or every once in a while. I know you read it.
Beast of Burden?
I think that might be it, but I tried finding it and I couldn't. But you're saying like I think it's like they're human-like. I know you read it because we've had this conversation. Not that, no. We've only had one or two conversations.
Yeah, it'd be Wild's End or Beast of Burden are the only animal.
But it
books
comes
to get.
out. It comes out like
Right.
very sparse.
Rarely.
Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah.
And I mean, in contrast, I got Mouse Guard, and this is really fluffy, cutesy, whatever. So that's what I worried about originally, and it's all right for what it is. But Squarriors, I don't know. Trust us, just get it.
Yeah.
DaCosta, thank you. It has been amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Love you, miss you.
Yeah.
I doubt he'll watch this far. He'll get past the rebirth stuff and tell us all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
You
I hate all you
Batman?
guys.
What? Yes. That's as far as he'll get. Yeah. So, what else? What else do you want to talk about? What you read, CDZ?
Do you want to talk Tokyo?
Okay. I got the other cover. I got the Red Panda cover.
Oh, I kind of like that one better.
Mine's the A. I think mine's the A. Yours is the B, I think.
It says B on it.
Yep.
Enjoying this. Would not say it's his best writing right now.
Mm-mm.
I'm a steampunk fan, huge, and all that. I'm actually finding the characters more interesting than the environment, which I didn't think would be the case. This was kind of a flat issue for me, and I'm not saying don't pick it up or anything like that. I would pick it up for the art alone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just weird that Remender's writing this in a lot of ways. It doesn't feel like anything else he's writing, which could be a good or a bad thing, depending on if you like his other stuff, which I haven't heard many people say they don't. Not on the verge of dropping this, but I would say this is definitely lower tier on the stuff with writing.
There's only 3 more issues left.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. It's taking out at least an extremely long break. I mean, they're done with the first story at 10. Because, of course, Murphy's got all these other commitments that he's doing, and I don't know what the plan is for them coming back. They haven't said it's like it'll never exist again, but that issue 10's the last of this story. And
I like that.
this issue, I mean, I like her coming back, Debbie coming back, her being this, badass kind of ninja wrecking the place kind of a thing, basically wreaking havoc on the people that are the one guy and all of the uppity up people that are basically soiling the country and the world and without seemingly a care. But the ending that happens in this to some degree, because part of it, the story is ended here, is very anticlimactic in a way. It was just like, okay, whatever. That was pretty, flat, for I guess for lack of anything to call it. And
She's cool as hell.
Clearly surprised there's a worse enemy, I guess. By the time we get to the very end of it, but it feels like a curveball has been thrown at us, but it didn't cross the plate. It didn't. There clearly it was nothing for me to swing at. It was a, it was a surprise. Here's the bigger element that we introduced a long time ago, but really was nothing. But now it's a big deal. Do you know what I mean?
And now it's heading for hiatus. I don't know. Like, from this issue, knowing that, I'm kind of... Can they clean all this up? Not clean all this
Three issues?
In 3 issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd settle it in some way that we would be interested in coming back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is he one of the people doing All-Star Batman?
Yeah, he's doing some issues of that. I mean, I know that. He's finishing it off, I believe. I think he's the end of it as far as that goes.
He's doing Chrononauts 2 too. Yeah, he's doing Chrononauts 2 too. Is
that coming up soon?
Yeah, I mean, I have no interest in that, but
no. Well,
I buy anything he draws. I generally, by the way, agree with you guys. This was a kind of a flat, lackluster story thread to this issue.
You know, the art is really cool. I don't know if the ploy is to desensitize me to the genitals and vulgarity that's in it to some degree. I mean, I get that it is, because that's kind of how the book starts out. Everybody's just kind of numb. You can't get enough of it because you've seen so much of it, you're just numb. So you jack in and get more of that. But it's almost to the point to where the comic is that way. You know, because he's dangling his ass out, and his lackeys are telling him what a great, what a great anus he has, basically.
Capital butthole. That was the word.
Yeah, capital butthole. Right. So and the hentai joke in it is pretty funny too. I mean, there's this ride. There's a mechanical ride. It's an octopus basically, with tentacles, and so I mean that is funny. There's some funny stuff in it, but like I said, I think it's supposed to be that way. I'm guessing that it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be kind of, my brain's supposed to be kind of sanitized to the whole whatever.
Yeah. But and it doesn't feel like, what was that? It was like Sidekick, I think, where it doesn't feel like it's doing these kind of sexual things and violent things for shock necessarily.
Right.
Like, I didn't feel like it wasn't there for like, this is for the sake of doing it, so you're reading it and that's the appeal of the book. I like the characters in this and stuff like that, but I feel like, I think going into this we had such expectations for it going into it, where it was like, this is going to be the dream team. If you're reading Deadly Class, just imagine that with Murphy's. Well, no, I wouldn't want to change that, but you get what I mean.
Right. Well, I like the whole going through the Tokyo thing. I even like the wrecking of Tokyo. That was all like, oh my gosh. And then I don't know, this, I'm not, the wreaking the revenge thing, I don't know if I'm excited about. And like I said, we kind of got an ending to who we thought the bad guy was. Now we got this twist, this kind of curveball, and I don't know that I'm sold on the.
Which in a way is very manga.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like this book was kind of a love story to manga at all. So I think I'm giving it too much credit there.
Right.
Because manga always has it where it's like, this is the worst thing ever, and then they get rid of that, and it's like, no, actually, this is the worst thing. Yeah.
So we'll see, but as all comics, this issue. I mean, the surprises at the end. I'll see clearly what's next next for it, as far as what that really means. And next issue, I could be totally blown away by it, but this issue on its own kind of a thing really was kind of, it was just kind of flat along. It wasn't anything real dynamic about it, but the art's always cool. So
yeah.
What else?
Take a turn.
Ryan, what do you want to talk about?
I will take this occasion to talk about a book that I've mentioned many times in the comments, and I don't think anyone else here is reading.
Are you talking about Shaft?
You damn right. The second Shaft miniseries just ended this week, Imitation of Life. One of the editors I work for, a guy at a site called Daily Grindhouse, said that he thinks this Shaft comic is the best thing going in popular culture in general right now.
Wow.
I'm not quite ready to go that far, but it is terrific. Anybody who, in this second four-parter, Shaft had a gay sidekick, which is pretty interesting. Figure in a 1971 Harlem Private Eye. There are, it's very topical. It has sort of, I won't show that page. I don't want your video getting flagged. It has typical for its time art. It's very period style art. It's good. It has that throwback feel to it. And yeah, if you've liked Walker's writing on Power Man and Iron Fist, or anything else you've seen it on that Oni book he does, Danger Club or whatever, this is in another league. This is just so damn good. And you know, he's got the character of John Shaft down like that. And it makes you realize that it makes you reanalyze the whole character by giving it more depth. And you get to realize, I mean, none of us here, you know, realize the extent to which Shaft was really a seminal figure, you know, in African American pop culture. I mean, there's just no question about it. Gordon Parks, the director of the first Shaft movie, has a high school in St. Paul named after him. I mean, he's from St. Paul. That has something to do with it. But you know what I mean? Not just, you know, there's been other film directors from this area, too, that don't have a high school named after them, you know? So, you know, this has a lot of respect for Shaft while still making him a flawed but ultimately cool character he always was. Terrific stuff. I really can't recommend either the first 6-part Shaft series or this second one, Imitation of Life. Can't recommend them highly enough. Super comics.
So did David Walker write the first one?
Yeah, he did. Oh, and he letters them, too. He's a letterer on those two. Those are from Dynamite, which is not even usually a publisher that I even pay much attention to. You know, I'm reading Remender's Devolution from them, too. But once that ends, until another Shaft series pops up, there won't be any Dynamite books on my pull. Their stuff doesn't really interest me. But that's a superb book. I can't recommend highly enough. And then the other thing I will tout here quickly that just, well, it came in the mail this week. I assume they ran it off at the printers last week, so who knows. And that is Mr. A, number 18. New from Robin Snyder and Steve Ditko. Kickstarter funded. Wow. So I think the only way you can order it is from the Snyder Ditko website. I got it, you know, just for throwing into the Kickstarter. But, you know, I don't know if you guys know anything about Mr. A, but he basically is the Question. He's a mirror character of the Question, only even more hardcore. And this is previously unpublished, new Ditko Mr. A stuff. Anyone who says the guy still can't draw, that cover, gorgeous. Sorry,
I've always loved Ditko's art. So.
Yeah, I'm not real great with this camera stuff. I've never turned my webcam on before tonight.
You'll get used to it.
If I'm ever invited back. But so this is $4 if you order it from Robin Snyder and Steve Ditko. Obviously, you know, with Mr. A, really more than a fight, you're getting a Randy and harangue, you know. But it's fascinating. It's amazingly well drawn. You know, just terrific. You know, there he is. Steve Ditko is 86 years old and still doing it. You know, anybody's got to respect that. So those are two indie books that I thought I'd draw to people's attention this week because I just didn't think anybody here else on the panel tonight, regardless of who was on the show, would probably have either one of those.
Yeah, that's true.
I have read some Shaft, actually, but
the first series?
Yeah.
Did you like
I liked it. Yeah, I thought it was good.
That was a one.
I'm a huge fan of movies from that period, so I checked it out just based off of that. I love 70s exploitation films, so I just...
What's your favorite Pam Grier flick?
Ooh, wow.
Coffee?
I was going to go Foxy Piranha at the top of my...
Really? We'll have to have this conversation another time. Yeah. I mean, you can't lose with any of them, but I think Coffee is probably arguably one of the 10 or 20 best movies ever made, period.
Yeah, it's a good conversation because she represents that period.
Yeah.
Anyone else reading Rachel Rising?
The final issue. No.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So I have a question because I'm always curious about books that end when they know they're ending because clearly he dictates when this book ends because it's his publishing company and everything. How did it end? Well, ended. Oh crap! You know. Oh, that was BS all along. Did it feel like he just kind of threw everything under the bus? I mean, what do you think?
I could see how people liked it. I could see how people didn't like it. I kind of fell in the middle. there's a lot of black pages at the end, and I think that a Big Two comic got throttled, and there's about 3 in this issue of just black. I enjoyed the series. From what I've read of it, I hopped on it later. Hopped on Stray Bullets from the get-go. I'm reading that right now. But I don't know. I think I'm going to have to reread the whole series to kind of really marinate on it and figure out what I really think. For the last issue, I would say meh. If that makes sense. Like,
sure.
Not like I was like, oh, this sucks or anything, but just kind of like, okay, that's an ending. It did what it was supposed to do. It ended.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just always curious. Always curious when a book ends because I have a hard time with with the endings of books. Lots of them don't land it right.
Has he said what he's doing next?
I don't know.
I've been so out of the loop this week.
Not any more ongoings. I think I heard him say that, right? That he's not doing any more ongoings.
Well, kind of a more wider question. Do you think in some ways a book being canceled can sometimes be better? Like, not always, obviously, but than them having a shit ending?
No ending at all?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if the ending leaves a sour taste in your mouth, then clearly just being gone is better than...
Yeah, because I think a lot of that comes from the mystique of it being canceled, like what could have been,
right.
And maybe if they actually delivered on that ending, it wouldn't be as good as you're like, oh, they could have done so much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know 100%. That's one of those kind of things. It's like why I can't figure out why I can't find a punk rock comic book that I enjoy that has to do with punk rock, and I can't find one of those that I enjoy either. So there's just something about, I don't know. Anyway, East to West. Did you read East to West? Issue 26?
Yes, I did.
So it looks like by the end of this stuff's going to get exciting again, maybe? Unless, of course, they go off someplace completely different.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking at the end of this. I was thinking, well, when this unfolds, this is going to be great, but they might go to something completely,
Right.
I still love this. I think it's going to be one of those comic books that I mean, people know about it, but I think it's flying under a lot of people's radars in a lot of ways. And I think in like 10 years, people are going to look back and be like, this was the comic that everyone was talking about at the time, and no one was.
Right.
It's an epic. It's one of the few comics to me that feels like an epic. Like in the sense of like this is so big scoped yet and all that, and I think that's why it doesn't appeal to a lot of people, because they want that instant gratification with a story. They want it right now, and I get with prize points and things like that, like the argument for that. But with this, I've enjoyed that slow burn, that like, whoa, because when it hits, like I every once in a while, I still think of the balloon just boom hitting that dude. You know, it's like when it hits hard, but it does that sizzle into that. It's not just immediate action, if you get what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's these like 3 or 4 really huge, what seem to be, world events building to kind of come to, ahead at some point. And then under each of those like things, there's these little tendrils of other stuff that make it tip one direction for a little while, and then it'll tip back the other direction. I mean, Def's getting close to finding his son. Oh, he's got this guy that's going to help him. Oh, the guy just basically told every super hunter under the sun to go kill the kid. Oh my God. There's just this stuff, and then there's some, then there'll be some, quasi meta thing happen in it that's its own kind of a thing. We get these build up of stories. You're going, okay, where's this going to lead to? And then they kind of forget about it. It seems like, okay, we've suddenly moved away from these 2 guys being brothers as kids all the time. When's that gonna play back into something? 4 issues later, bam, the 2 run into each other as adults, and they immediately fall back into this friendship. Well, how's that going to play? Because they're both clearly standing on the opposite sides of a much larger problem as the end of the apocalypse is coming. These political groups are all gathered at this central location where they kind of hash out how's the end of the world going to happen. It sounds like almost, or how are they going to survive it kind of a thing. There's all this political backstabbing going on. There's just so much cool stuff that this long haul is well worth it.
Yeah, and like, I enjoy the personal relationships between the characters. They feel authentic. They never feel like, oh, this is just melodrama. I also feel that this comic could easily fall on its face if it was written by someone else, because I think we both kind of touched on this a little bit. It's that anticipation to the gun being shot versus the gun being shot. And when the gun shoots, it's a payoff every time. Every time they've built towards something in this comic, and I felt like, I don't know if this is going anywhere, it hits. And I could see another writer, like the fourth, handling this and just not being able to do the payoff.
Right.
The payoff is always there.
Yeah. Glancing at the comments, Fred, no, the balloon is not back yet. We're just using the balloon as an example. Balloon is not back.
Because the reason why I use the balloon as an example is because that stood out for me, because the comic book was kind of just doing these building things for a little bit, and all of a sudden there's just this issue where you're like, holy.
And for anybody who's not reading the comic book, the balloon is actually a character. The balloon is a computer that is tethered to the eyes of what supposedly is the end of the world. I mean, it's a little kid who is the son of death. And he is supposed to be the coming of the apocalypse. He is, he calls himself Babylon, isn't that what he calls himself? But he is literally the end of everything. And the computer that's attached to him, like I said, it gives him all of his visuals, so he sees the world through the balloon. And the balloon is not
honest.
It's not honest. I won't say anymore because anybody who reads this in trades, one of my favorite parts is that whole the destroyed forest and when he comes out, he gets out of the place that he's been hidden in this entire time, and when he sees the world, what he sees and what he really is in is amazing. So yeah.
I have a weird question just to see if you guys agree. Is that, I mean, even though I hesitate to use this word about any comic, but even though there's obviously a convergence of events starting to happen in this book now, it doesn't necessarily feel closer to ending to me.
No. Right?
I mean, it feels like they could go on for another 100 issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, because this thing just keeps tipping closer and closer, but but clearly there's still a ton that they could... And that's not even wandering off into what would seem like meaningless stuff just to fill issues. Like you get the corporate comic, and it's like, okay, we gotta... we need to drag this out so it makes the trade or whatever. That never feels like that in this. It all has real meaning.
Yeah,
it all has worth and weight to it. You start seeing some side story about some character's past or whatever, or their friendship and whatnot, and then they will come to a group, and suddenly that has a completely different meaning of what you just read. Now it has a completely different value to it. Of what's next. So yeah, for sure.
I would tell anyone that's going to give it a shot, have some patience with it and let it unfold for you, because it's not going to immediately just give you it instantly.
Oh yeah, because straight up honest, by issue 5, I was very frustrated with this book. I'm like, yes, Western, but come on, you're not. What do you? Come on. And then after that issue 5, then it hits I don't know, something about it after issue 5. Then I know a lot of us were getting it. And I know a lot of people quit getting it in issue 5. They would have hung on for another issue, then it just all changes, and then it just kind of really goes.
It just immediately just takes the scope of the book and goes, this is worldwide, this is huge.
Right.
And you saw Hickman's got a new one coming out, too.
Yeah, which I will be getting.
What is that?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be coming back at all.
What doesn't?
No.
Dead.
It died, right?
Forever.
How many issues of that came out?
2.
Yeah, I think I was going to say, I only think I got 2 issues of
that. Black Monday Murders is the new book. It was announced back in March around with the Image Expo. Yeah. So it's basically, if you take sorcery and it was folded into the economics and the stock market kind of a thing. A classic, let's see, the Black Monday Murders is a classic occult indoctrination where the secret schools of magic are actually clandestine banking cartels who control all of society. Goes on to say a whole bunch more, but I'm intrigued by that too. So
yeah.
checking it out for sure. And this, if you want to, if you're those people that's into hardbacks, I think this is coming out like a deluxe hardback, right? That's like it's like 2 or 3 trades all together in one big, fancier big. So if you're into
Not
shelf,
that I'm doing a commercial,
right?
but that'd be a way to read it.
Right. I mean, if you're into shelf porn, that's going to look pretty sexy on your shelf. And yeah.
That would be the way to read it, though. To be fair, like I think it does better in like those bigger installments.
Yeah, for sure. Well, anybody else want to talk about? I still have lots of books I could talk about, but Star,
Mike.
Nice. This is issue 9. We got one more issue after this, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's starting to feel like what you were saying earlier about some of these rushed endings. This one does have a bit of that feel, because there was never any talk in previous issues about, we know the world had gone to hell, so it fits, but there'd never been any mention about him having these debt problems, and that, he'd end up in a future debtor's prison, which, probably they will bring back at the rate we're going. But, it fits, and yet at the same time it feels rushed. You're shoehorned into the story.
Well, yeah, because I mean, he's been flirting with not fulfilling his contract all along, right? I mean, the book starts out with him basically living in the equivalent of a third world country, like Taiwan or someplace like that. Not that Taiwan's a third world country, but something along those lines. And clearly not following through with the rest of his contract, and no one seemed to care. He comes back, he dabbles with Starve a little bit, and now they're suddenly going to go after him and arrest him and throw him in debtor's prison for not fulfilling his contract, because he didn't sign a new contract. This is still the same old contract. So yeah, you're right. That did feel like a sudden sea change that was never there, and I'm sure that's probably the fact is the book isn't selling as well as what they wanted to, so they're going to end it, and so they got to move things along in some direction. So.
And looking back, it started almost with the last issue, because remember they'd spent a couple issues bringing together that really interesting new storyline where he had bought that chicken shack, and he was redoing it and having this neighborhood chicken shack, and then just, he gets it all up and going within maybe 2 issues, and then last month he just turns it over to the workers and walks away. And that seemed like a story that could have had some legs for a while.
Yeah, the corporate goons shut up and beat him, and then that all they didn't address that, right? The end of that one issue, the goons show up with the baseball bats and take him outside and basically, wail on him for not following the contract and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I'm still enjoying the book. I like it. It's one of those books that's just kind of different than anything else that's coming out, and so I like it for those aspects. But yeah, I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those books that's going to end. I'm going to go, okay, that ended, but it's not going to. I'm going to be left with a desire to have wished I would have gotten to see what really was planned.
I really hope. I mean, Wood's got 40 things going on, but I really hope Zazelle, or however you say his name, turns up against somewhere soon, because he is the modern heir to Bernie Krigstein. There's just no 2 ways about it.
No, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I mean, I see such a huge Krigstein influence, and I'm not saying he's as good as Krigstein. That would be insane. But, it's of a stylistic type, and it's just his stuff is just gorgeous.
Right. Yeah. It's not for everybody. I mean, he definitely has his own. Yeah. I mean, it's not. It's different, but works really well for this. I mean, he gets on titles that work really well, and it's really enjoyable. I'm always intrigued. Whatever he's on, I generally pick up just to see what it's going to be like. So for sure, but I can never say his name, so I always feel bad about the fact that
I have trouble with it too.
It's I don't know. Clearly, English is my first and only language. So. What else do I want to talk about? Briefly talk about Cry Havoc #5. One more issue of it left. There's a lot of these. I'm gonna have lots of room on my poll just because stuff is going away by attrition, basically. I like this book. I like this story. I'm intrigued with this kind of old school mythos, and now this issue kind of definitely gives us more of the story in the sense that there's some sort of new mythology that's kind of rolling out.
Yep.
The reason that our main character is pregnant, she's going to have a baby. The reason this baby is so significant is it is it is the first basically cross-pollination between
Hybrid,
old mythos and new mythos. So, and everybody kind of wants it. Everybody wants her/it, the baby that's going to come. And this one this issue had a lot of reveal to get us to that. I do feel like some of it is also kind of rushed along because they know they've only got so many issues. I mean, I think it's unfortunate. I think there's a lot of smart and interesting stuff going on here. This could have been a long and complicated, kind of a story. They do a good job of touching on some interesting things, some relationship struggles in this thing. So there's good character as far as that go. Plus the us being exposed to the idea of the fact there are this potential battling of mythos, the old mythos, the new mythos. They're trying to find a place in a world where we try to explain everything away as not being mythological, but yet here it is, kind of a stuff. I like all that. I think that the coloring in it, because it's colored by 3 different colorists, because it's set in 3 different times, and so it's colored with a certain palette. The red palette seems the weakest to me. It's mostly about the borders being red. I mean, I guess it's all kind of reddish yellow hues. I think the blue tends to be the best as far as the colors go.
I agree with that 100%. The blue pages.
I mean, I like it all, and you can still tell when you're in places without. But it just seems to me like that the red, which is Afghanistan, just seems to be the easiest cop out for that. Is just they paint the gutters. The gutters are red, as opposed to really sticking hard and fast with a true red palette all the way through it. Of course, it's harder for that because the main character has blue hair, and so you put her on a red page. It makes it harder to do reds. Whereas clearly in the blue pages, which is her back in England, with blue hair, it's easier to do it in blues, I guess. But I still really like it. I still really like the back matter that kind of talks about some of the different panels and monsters and whatever they feel like talking about what's going on in the book too. So I enjoy that aspect of it also. So I hope it sells well. I hope it sells well enough in trade that it could be something that they could revisit later on. Cy Spurrier has said that he really didn't expect this to be an ongoing. He was kind of hoping it would go longer than what it did. But they have more stuff if they want to do more stuff. So if they were to
Are they doing a trade for sure?
I would be shocked if there isn't a trade. I guess I don't know. Yes, because don't they say on the back of this it's coming out?
I didn't. Okay, maybe I didn't see that.
I thought there was like an ad towards the back of the thing that said coming in.
A house ad for the trade. Okay. Because some of these Image books they've been wrapped like the Violet, they're not doing a trade.
Yeah,
Pencil
maybe
Head, they're not doing trade.
Really? Pencil Head, they're not? I bet you Pencil.
McKeever said himself that Shadowline told him they're not going to put that out in trade.
Huh. I would almost expect with his book that they'd be obnoxious and they'd wait a year and then they'd put out in that smaller format.
Yeah, that they did with the other stuff.
Right, which is annoying.
I wanted to make a couple quick points about the creators on this one, which is Ryan Kelly. Hopefully he'll get some work quick because he's gone from having 2 monthlies to none because Survivors Club is canceled.
Right.
And then this is wrapping up. And then Spurrier, I know that some of these books are stuff nobody follows, but The Spire will be ending coming up here. It's got 1 issue to go. This was cut from an ongoing or a potential ongoing to 6. Weavers was originally solicited as an ongoing, and by the time it came out, it's marked for 6. And he's also been writing Cross Plus 100 over at Avatar, and they're winding that up too. Which, by the way, he's done great. That's an awesome book. I'm not even a Cross follower or fan, and I just did Cross Plus 100 at the start because Moore was writing it. And Moore's first 6-issue arc is amazing. I mean, it's one of the best comics no one's talked about, but Spurrier followed it up really well, too. And he's actually been on it longer. He's been doing it for like 12, 13 issues, and they're wrapping that up at number 18. So I don't know if he's got some big deal coming up or if he's going to be looking for work. Hopefully he's got some big project lined up because he's had like 4 things going, and they're all going to be winding up.
Yeah, and you're right. You're right. This one doesn't have anything. I thought it did, but it doesn't have an ad.
Okay, yeah, sometimes when there's de facto cancellations of Image, you know, like
Sure.
if they tell a creator we're not going to put your book out in trade because the monthly sales haven't supported it, then at that point they're done because the creator's never going to get paid for that book.
Right.
They don't get paid till that first trade.
Mm-hmm.
And when the trade money is almost all gravy to them, you know, they get
Right.
paid a huge sum of the trade. But if Image decides that the sales are too low to support a trade, then that's usually, you know, the creators at that point cancel themselves. You know, they say,
Well, because
we
they're
just
working
can't
for
keep
free.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't keep working for free. So that's what happened to the Violent, and if there's no trade, hopefully they'll do a trade for Cry Havoc. I'd like to see it.
Well, yeah, if nothing else, just so the creators make bank, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just crazy. Ryan Kelly fills every panel of every page, and him doing 2 books at once, people don't do that anymore. Modern comic book artists do not do that. It's crazy. I mean, a lot of his pages he hasn't been inking now because he just can't keep up, but the fact that he's even just penciling it is nuts. But normally he inks his own work. But that's nuts. I mean, I was shocked to see the only other person I know, modern artist, that's doing multiple books is Gary Brown. You know, is doing The Black Road. He's going to be doing a book for Aftershocks, and he's doing he's doing
In
another.
fact, I think his Aftershock book might have come out this week.
Yeah, I mean he's got 3 or 4 books going, and he says that he could do 3 books a month.
Jeez.
Well, I sat there and watched him do a commission, and he was cranking it out like nobody's business. And it was not like, you know, just head sketch. We're talking full on, you know, 17 by 14, detailed from one end to the other kind of stuff. It's just his style, the way he goes about working is, you know, he's fluid and whatnot. There's a couple out there that, you know, artists that I guess can do that, but it just seems nuts. And in the case of Ryan Kelly, he has medical issues on top of the fact that he's doing that. So I don't know. It's amazing. I love his work. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Kelly's work. I hope he finds more work right away also. He just can't seem to get attached to something that seems to be contemporary enough for people to want to get a hold of it. I don't think that has anything to do with him. I don't know. He gets on these kind of obscure books that almost don't feel like they're designed to be large crowds pleaser type books. I mean, the 3, you know, when he was on that with Kieran Gillian, for instance, it's a Roman and Trojan story. That's pretty niche as far as stuff goes. You know, his way earlier work when he was working with Oni Press and working with Brian Wood, that stuff's just kind of obscure anyway. I think some great work.
I thought Cry Havoc had some commercial potential, just with, you know, the whole werewolf craze being what it is.
But okay, so when you put the book out and you say it's werewolf, lesbian, violin player fighting in Afghanistan,
I'm in.
See, I'm in too, but I think there's plenty of other people who are going to go, you're just putting a bunch of BS together, and I don't want anything to do with that.
Then you shouldn't be reading comics if that's the.
You're missing out on the good comics. That's kind of where I'm at, but I don't know. You know, it's one of those kind of.
And Spurrier is in has one of the segments of Cinema Purgatorio too. The Avatar anthology book. That's him, Moore, Kieran Gillen, and Garth Ennis. All have strips in there every month. But yeah, I mean, it sucks to see, you know, guys who are getting a lot of work have it all dry up at once like that because, you know, it's already a rough enough deal. Well, Spurrier's British, so he's got medical insurance, but you know what I mean? Somebody like Kelly.
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I mean?
And I haven't heard. I mean, I follow him on Twitter and stuff. I haven't heard that he has any work yet. All he's talked about is the stuff that's ending, not what's coming. So
I hope he lands somewhere soon because he's talented as hell.
Yeah, and his fans that used to work like at Vertigo and whatnot, most of them are not employed with Vertigo anymore as far as editors and go. So I don't know what his relationship is with the newer editors that are there. So because that was someplace that he used to reasonably get work at, you know, doing fill-in issues and that sort of thing. But I don't know. Anyway, any other books we want to talk about? it's getting late. So
I'll just hit it then quick. Johnny Red, the Russian troops have destroyed the German base. They know reinforcements are coming, so they have to fly the big German transport ship out of there and into Germany or into Russia. And only Johnny is the only fighter they have to defend him. So you can about imagine, it's that, Dirty Dozen syndrome of, bad luck and excitement. I mean, if you're into aerial combat comics, I'm sure it's as niche market as it gets. It actually does an amazing job. So,
did you just hear them describe Cry Havoc? Are you sure that's as niche as it gets?
Mike, are you getting Dreaming Eagles too?
Sorry, am I getting the? What was that?
Are you getting Dreaming Eagles?
No, I'll probably pick that one up in trade.
Okay, yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah,
right.
that'll be right up there. Yeah.
Tuskegee guys, is that right?
Tuskegee Airmen, also written by Ennis.
Yep.
Who really has a modern master really of writing war comics, in my opinion. He's really gotten a really good niche at that.
One more I'll talk about. Art Ops. This is issue number 8. Start of a new. Start of a new arc. I really like this issue. This issue, it's called Popism. Is the first part here. Reggie, our main Reggie, right? Yeah, Reggie, our main character, who has a arm that's made of modern art that he keeps wrapped up like a mummy, basically. But he can use it, to punch people out and fun things like and fondle girls and fun stuff like that. He meets his dad, who ran away before he was even born, and is trying to come to terms with dad suddenly showing up and giving him a car and trying to be, I love you, son, and Reggie's an adult now and really is like, Dad, I don't want anything to do that. I mean, basically, Reggie's dad used to be in charge of the art ops, and he bailed on him because he's more about the art than he is about the trying to keep art under control kind of stuff. In this issue, we find out that there is a group of guys called the Neighborhood Dads, and they're kind of your Mr. Cleaver kind of looking type guys, and they are torturing art because remember, in this book, art is alive and it can leave its frames and go wild and go running around, and the art ops, it's their job to keep art under control and keep it in its frames and not let people know that it's gone that it's gone crazy and whatnot. But these guys are torturing pieces of art, and how they're torturing pieces of art is literally like taking paint thinner and melting because the art's alive, so they're like melting this woman down into a puddle of goo, trying to get her to tell them where the hidden Nazi art is, because they know the art knows where the art is hidden. So I don't know. Here we are back to Nazis again. I don't know if the real reason the dads are trying to find the art is because, of course, all that because the Nazis stole tons of art when they were taking over all of Europe, and they supposedly had this huge cache of all this incredibly wealth. It's never been found. It's all hidden away somewhere. So I don't know if the dads are looking for it for the money, or if they're looking at it for some more sinister reason. We don't know that aspect of it yet. So that's kind of the threat that's happening in this one that Reggie's going to help with. Reggie's actually going to help the rogue art probably, even though that's not what he's supposed to be doing. Meanwhile, there's a character called the Body. He is a superhero. He is actually art from a comic book. He's a comic book superhero. He actually works with the art ops, though. He's an actual piece of art that actually helps out. He's taken a vacation, and he is in Hollywood, and he's dressed up as a Hollywood writer. He wears a rubber mask because the Body is this giant black guy, and he looks like a giant black void. And he is trying to sell a story that he has written. And the story he has written it's this kind of, semi-romance, semi-struggle kind of a thing. And everybody in Hollywood wants to turn it into a supernatural flick because supernatural flicks are really popular right now. So they want the characters to be vampires and werewolves, basically a Twilight kind of thing. He's like, no, I really don't want to do that. By the end of this issue, though, he finds out that they know who he is, and they have bought the rights to his comic. It comes from. Because superhero comic movies are really popular right now.
That's funny.
And he's been upset in his stomach and he just feels really sick. Well, because they own him now. Because they bought the rights to his comic, so who knows what's going to happen with that. So it's been really cool. It's really fun. I'm surprised this book is still ongoing with some of the other books that have been kind of canned, but it's cool. It's cool. It's got kind of a hip, kind of a, I don't know, wink and a nod of some sort that I just kind of really enjoy. So
it's always consistently done a couple thousand more than those ones that they axed. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
With the Vertigo stuff, if you fall around 6 or 7, you're doomed. You know, but if you can keep around 8 or 9,
because it's still about the trade, right?
Yeah, you'll be all right. So I think the Allred involvement with that one, you know, is going to give it a little more push on sales. Although, you know, they have a different guy, Brundage, doing the art now, and I like his stuff just fine. You know,
it matches up well. It's not Allred, but it's close enough to the same kind of vibe that it still works. And of course,
and Laura Allred is still doing the inks and the colors. So.
Right, her colors definitely make it solid to seem like the same sort of a thing too. Yeah, for sure. Any other books anybody want to talk about? No. Are we done for the night then?
Well, I don't think there's any news or anything. So.
Yeah, no, because I don't want to get into like the Preacher or anything like that, because that would be a whole nother.
How about the quick
hours?
Some of the creator reaction to Comixology Unlimited is a little less than enthusiastic.
Oh yeah, so right. Comixology Unlimited, released this app that supposedly you pay, free to start out with, but you pay a lump sum, and then you unlimited, so you can just read whatever. Of course, it's not really that. I mean, if you look at the internet at all, pretty much everyone will tell you that it's not unlimited. It's a little bit of free stuff. But yeah, the disturbing news that seems to be out of that is Image kind of forgot to tell their creators that it was happening. So suddenly these creators who a creator-owned book, the idea is, right, you're making money off of those sales, especially after the first run of the book, right? And if you're giving it away for free, maybe you're not making any sales. I mean, if that encourages people to buy the trade and buy the next, buy the next arc, then it was worth it. But I would think that would be something that you'd want to run past your employees before you told them they were working for free, right? Am I getting that wrong? Am I getting that wrong, Ryan?
Well, if you look at like their listings, like I'm not going to subscribe to it because I'm not a digital guy, but you look at stuff and it's like they'll have the first volume of Saga.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest, if you want, you'll have to buy it. So, yeah, I think the brass at Image, Stevenson, and whoever, thought that, if they could get everyone to view it as a sales incentive, and only offer certain things free, then they will, then it'll lead to more sales for these creators, and they should be thanking them or something.
Sure.
And, of course, that's easy enough to say when you're not counting on your, 2.5% to feed your kids, you know what I mean? And you're running the company. So there's been some pushback. It is nowhere near unlimited, obviously. The name is very misleading. Or they're trying to market it as a Netflix of comics kind of thing. I heard one interview with the CEO of Comixology on a podcast, thanks to Damien's channel, paying attention, and it was an absolute joke. The guy was steering the, this is why comics journalism in general, except for guys like me and Fred, who I know is watching,
the little guys,
is a joke. These people are co-opted. This guy was steering this interview to like, well, it's such a great app because you have all the Transformers on there. Well, yeah, they have like 75 issues of Transformers. They can get all that because it's a licensed bundle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think, honestly, if this rollout is any indication, I think Comixology Unlimited is going to crash and burn.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't think it's going to last.
Yeah. But my issue, like I said, would be the fact is it wasn't floated past these creators.
Wasn't told at all.
It's one thing, if the company calls you up and says, hey, this is what we'd like to do, and explains, we're hoping this gets you more sales, whatever, and you choose to opt into it, awesome. Because I can see where it might, clearly getting to see it for free, in a legal place. We'll get into that whole can of worms, because I'm still getting tweets about it.
Yeah, me too.
Then that's great, because you get that first volume, and for me, Saga's one of those things. I would think if unless you hate the book, you read that first arc, and it's like, damn, I want to know what's going on, and then you're suckered into it, and then you keep going, kind of a thing. So it makes sense. It makes sense, but it should be, because it's a creator-owned thing. There should be a conversation, because those sales really matter to your bottom line. It's not just the trade. It's those single issues and stuff. I don't know. To me, that wasn't good business. Wasn't good business for Image anyway. I mean, the corporate comics, I don't think there's well, the big two aren't even in it.
They're not in it.
Because DC isn't going to do that, and Marvel already has their own Unlimited thing. So, yeah, I don't know.
From what I understand, the Marvel Unlimited is much closer to truly being unlimited.
Yeah.
I mean, they're adding more back stock all the time, and they basically have almost everything up to about a year ago. I mean, you're behind. I think they stagger it by 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
But 6 months? Okay. Everything up to that within the last several years is pretty much on there. And this Comixology Unlimited, it's very limited.
Yeah,
you're going to pay $6 a month, and it's going to be a rotation. And basically, most of it's set up to entice you into checking out other things. It is not the Netflix of comics like they've advertised.
That's a poor analogy. Yeah. No. So
Interesting.
it is what it is. So, anything else? Nope. We'll call it a night, since I don't know, we're now almost 4 hours, 3.5 hours.
My fault. Sorry.
No, it's awesome. I love that conversation at the beginning. Well, the whole conversation, but the conversation at the beginning of the show. That's what we're here to talk about. Is to get all that different stuff out there, different opinions, and whatnot. So it's been awesome, and thank you everybody who's been watching. We've had reasonably solid viewership all the way through this, so much appreciated. And once again, as always, those of you who soldier all the way through this, kudos to you. Yeah, hi Mercy. You're one of the people I know watches to the end after the show. There are other people too, and I apologize. I forget to. I know write your guys' names down, because every so often people will comment and go, hey, I watched this thing all the way through too, and I know you do, and like I said, I really appreciate that. We all do. We're here for ourselves, to have our conversation amongst ourselves, but it's always cool to have that conversation with people outside who are sitting here in the hot seat.
Was Reader out on the comments tonight?
No, Damien usually isn't around tonight. He'll watch it probably Monday or Tuesday at work. And
all right. Well, then when he hears this, I'll say, everyone say hell on earth right now, because that's what we were supposed to say if you made it all the way through his last hour-long video. So if he makes it to the end of this one, he'll know everybody made it to the end of his.
There you go. At any rate, thank you everybody for watching, and I'll announce it again in my own videos. There's no Comic Book Roundtable next week, or at least not on my channel. I have a kid graduating, and it'd probably be in poor taste for me to be here instead of actually at his graduation.
Host it from the graduation.
If I could figure out how to do it, I would, but
that'd be hilarious.
Yes. So at any rate, thanks for tuning in.
To your son.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Have a great one.